Am I allowed to plug my bike swap this Saturday?
Huh?
Am I allowed to plug my bike swap this Saturday?
Sure. It's a community event.
Since we promoted it in the schools anyway?
Yep.
1 minute.
1 minute?
1 minute.
Is it 1 minute?
1 minute.
It's 54 seconds now.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, Michael.
Is that Brian?
There's God.
Yes, it is.
Brian, I think
Sorry.
it's a little too loud.
I've been less focused on kindergarten because of the
Okay.
bike swap.
That-
Sorry.
From The Simpsons. Where it's like Ned, Ted.
I need a week of focus on bike.
Give me all your cookies. Leave them in the treehouse.
You just focus on it.
Like your Steve Grossman tie.
She published my
Blue and orange.
an article about it.
Go Broncos.
Now, do you recycle that orange stuff?
Well, I've had it.
30 seconds.
Oh no, I use it every. I've used it.
To the Monday, April 28th, 2014 school committee meeting. This meeting is live and being recorded. We'll begin tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kind of Starting. The Long Meadow School Committee maintains educational policies that foster continuous improvement by challenging and supporting all children in a safe and caring learning environment, enabling them to reach their highest potential and to become productive citizens. Through effective communication and positive relationships, the Long Meadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interest of the students, the schools, and the Long Meadow community. We'll begin tonight with a presentation from members of the Long Meadow High School community. With us tonight is Paul Dunkerley, Assistant Superintendent at Long Meadow High School, and Sandy McDonald, that's what I meant, Principal, so used to you guys. And Sandy McDonald, who's our METCO Assistant Coordinator. And so if you guys want to come up and introduce what you're going to be presenting tonight, what your students are going to be presenting, that'll be great.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for allowing the high school to come and present to school committee. Michael, I appreciate the promotion, but I'm not sure that I'm quite ready for that step yet, so if it's all the same to you, I'll just stay as assistant
Let me
principal.
know when you are.
Okay, all right. So tonight's conversation with members of the high school, with Sandy and Les, myself, is really about community outreach. Outreach to our local community in terms of the students and teachers within the high school, and also to our parents and the greater community at large, our Long Meadow, town of Long Meadow community. So to give you a little bit of quick history, last year, one of our teachers, Jim Flaherty, brought an idea to us, and he said, you know, there's a gentleman that I know by the name of Ron Jones, and he and his partner have been making presentations to colleges, schools, various communities, all about the issues of racism, bias, and the power of diversity. And so he got us this information, we started to take a look at it, and quite frankly, it was something we were very interested in right from the get-go. We took a fair amount of time to explore this, and the more we looked at it, the more we knew that we wanted to bring this to the community. We also understood that it wasn't just something that we wanted to bring to our high schoolers, it was something that we wanted to bring to everybody. And so as a result, as you know, this is called the Black Jew Dialogues, a potentially somewhat polarizing title. But it really is about the prejudices and biases that non-dominant groups have experienced over many years within this country, and the similarities between all of the different groups that make up the United States. So with the help of Jim Flaherty, Sandy McDonald, Megan Schwartz, Megan Roy, and Shelley Warren, we started to work to bring this to our community. And we were very fortunate to be able to partner with the folks from the Jewish Federation who got on board with this immediately and supported us not only physically but financially as well. And Rachel Berezin, Susan Firestone, and Jeff Rembrandt were key in working with us on this as well. Likewise, the LHS PAC gave us funding to match the funding that we put forward from the high school to bring the program together. And what this really is it's a really funny show. It's a belly laugh. At times you become very uncomfortable because they're using phrases and terminology that I think make most of us uncomfortable, and yet are part of the everyday life that we lead here in the United States. We know that gone are the days of separate seating and sitting at the back of the bus. We know that, we can all use the same drinking fountain, and we're not admitted to using, different facilities within a particular building. Those days are gone. But what we are experiencing is something within popular media, for example, in terms of what is now supposedly being accepted. And the message that Ron and his partner Larry Tisch bring is that we can't forget kind of where we've come from so that we know what to do in order to continue to go forward. We've made a huge amount of progress in terms of dealing with racism and bias and all those things that go with it, but we're starting to lose the grasp on that, and we're starting to lose the edge on that. It's kind of like if you look at World War II. There are very few people now who are old enough to remember it in the detail in which it occurred. And there were some horrible things that happened in World War II, and we're starting to forget those things. And the same thing is happening with racism, the 50s, 60s, and 70s particularly being the most turbulent time. We're starting to forget now as a society what that was really like. And that's the dialogue and the conversation that Larry and Ron, through the Black Jew Dialogues, want to see us continue, how we continue to move forward and take advantages of the diversity that makes up basically, our population. So we had 19 students involved in our Unity Club and 10 students involved with our peer leadership class that worked together with the staff members that I mentioned and the folks from the Jewish Federation to bring this forward. And what I'd like to do this evening is not have you listen anymore to me, but have you hear what the impressions were from the students. I want to warn you that they've had no prep whatsoever other than me saying, say what you think and give the committee your true impressions. So with that, I'm going to ask that Emily Goodman come on up. I'm going to ask each student to go in turn and introduce themselves and give their impression to you about the program itself and about the importance of what we're doing. And I'd like to end this up with Sandy McDonald. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emily Goodman. I'm a senior at Long Meadow High School. I felt that the Black Jew Dialogue was something that the community really needed and something really worthwhile to bring to the community, and I'm very thankful that we had it. However, I do feel that the people that came to the Black Jew Dialogues wasn't exactly the people that we really wanted to reach out to in the community. The people that were there already knew the issues. They weren't the people that needed to know about the issues and be informed about them. So I think that this is something that we should bring back next year and in years to come, but we need to really attract it in a different way to different people in the community to get them there. For instance, maybe having it like during the school day for teens to come and listen so that they really are impacted by it, because it's such a powerful and meaningful message that the show displayed, and a lot of people should really hear about it. And it's really worthwhile. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
My name is Jake Chakowski, and I'm a sophomore at Long Meadow High School. And I thought that the Black Jew Dialogues was really informative to many people, because I actually brought down my F block history class to see like a screening of the show, I guess you could say. And it really informed people that hadn't really experienced racism themselves, because Long Meadow's a fairly homogenous community, and there's not any really big instances of racism, I feel like, that really go on here. But knowing that as you move outside of Long Meadow, as you move outside of, the sheltered environment, there's still racism, and there's still really nasty things that go on. And knowing that it happens, identifying it, I think really helped a lot of people. I do agree with Emily that the demographics for what we did wasn't the best. A lot of older people came out, not a lot of young people. But I think that it's really important for the young people to know too, because those are the people that don't really know what racism is. Right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emerson Azevedo, and I'm a sophomore here at LHS. And going off of what Jake said, the part about Long Meadow being a really sheltered environment, I agree with that a lot, because there's not a lot of big issues, including like racism and sexism and a lot of stuff like that. But as like he said before, when you go out, you sort of experience like a lot more things. Like as a little kid, I used to live in Springfield, and from personal experience, I can say that it was a way sort of harsher environment there. And coming into Longmeadow, it's nice to have, you know, a community where everybody supports each other, but it's also important to know that stuff like this does happen outside, and stuff like the Black Jew Dialogues is really helpful and informative and helps everyone sort of know that these issues are still out there. And for the Black Jew Dialogues, I myself really enjoyed the how Ron and Larry integrated comedy into it, because it's a subject that's really sort of touchy and awkward to talk about, but when he brought in the comedy, it sort of made it sort of informal and regular, and it just really made it a lot easier for everyone to sort of understand where they were coming from. And I think it's a great thing to have, and I think we should continue to do it. And also what Emily said, I think it would be really useful to do it during a school day, so that way the whole school could experience it, because for me, for myself, it was a really good experience, and I'd love to see it again.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Aaron Richardson. I'm a sophomore at LHS. And I think that the Black Jew Dialogues was great for the community. I think that we actually do have issues like racism and prejudice that happens within the community, but we tend to like ignore it almost, or avoid it, almost like a dismissive sort of apprehension. And for Ron and Larry to bring the comedy into a topic that we normally wouldn't even discuss, sometimes with our friends, it was really important. And I like how they kind of took it over the top to make people really get into it, including like the students, because I honestly didn't expect many students to attend. So when I saw how many kids went, it was actually really cool. And I like how the middle-aged and older people really enjoyed it too, and how everyone could almost relate to it. Even if you weren't put in that position, they still made you connected to it in some way. And it was also a very good history lesson for all the students too. So I think that we should definitely do it again. And if, like, going off of what Emerson said, we should also do it in the school, like during a block or something, so more kids could be exposed to it, because it's really the kids who need to be exposed to issues like this, because they're the ones whose minds are being shaped. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. They've said it all, and that's without any prompting. This is how they're really feeling about it. So I'm not even going to say much except for this. After 36 years, I've enjoyed every moment that I've been here, and this is why I don't even mention retirement for me. But when I have young people come to me, the students come to me and say, when are they coming back? When can we do this again? Tells me that it opened up their eyes, and it's given me a new energy, is what it really has, because they've been so happy about it. But just to sum everything up, I received an email from Ron Jones himself, and this is what he said. He's thanking us for even having him there, and I've been thanking him. It is with great appreciation that I write this note. I regret that I cannot deliver these words in person. I wish to share my gratitude for the hard work and consistent commitment the teachers and the staff on working to bring my program, the Black Jew Dialogues, to Longmeadow High School this past March. I see my job as being some of the moral that it sits between the bricks of the education system. My program is an effort to put the issues of race, culture, gender, and all matter of differences into a functional persuasion for each community. That offers students a chance to see different through a new lens. It also hopefully will give them some insight into worlds that they may not realize that even exist. The team at the high school made my job easy. We were allowed to go make a classroom presentation the day of the show, as well as assembly period, the morning after the performance, to give students a chance to express and any insight and feelings that they may have and were unable to display during our show. I know that several of the teachers use some of our materials in class as well. We have hundreds of shows, we've done hundreds of shows across North America over the past few years. A good number of them have been high schools, both private and public. Longmeadow High School embraced our programs, options, and potentially made us better for it. It was an honor working with such a sharp and professional team. I hope we can find the opportunity to work with your community again in the future. All my best and blessings, Ron Jones, Director of Black Jew Dialogues. Let's make something happen in the fall if possible. All my love and gratitude, Ron. And that really sums it up. He felt very good about leaving here, and he felt very proud of Longmeadow for supporting such a program as this.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thanks so much, Sandy.
So if the committee has any questions that they'd like to direct to either Sandy or myself or our students, be happy to answer any questions that we can. Mary?
I'm impressed with the honest feedback. I think racism does exist everywhere, and I think it's easier for us to pretend it's not happening in Longmeadow or in my family or my neighborhood. So I think to open up this dialogue was extremely important, and the fact that the four of you came to speak really helps us understand this was important to you, and it's something that we should really look to bring back again. I like the idea of bringing it during the day because we can't expose all the students to it that way, as opposed to many of you who have busy schedules and couldn't make it at night. So, but thank you very much. I was very impressed with your comments and feedback.
Janet?
I just wanted to say, I did attend the presentation and just echo what all of you have said. It was a wonderful opportunity, and agreeing that, there were a fair number in the audience who were older, and not necessarily the target audience, but the message still, definitely got across. And I can only echo the idea of having it during the day and having all of our high school students be able to take part in the program. I think it's an important piece that you don't get a chance to see or experience every day. And when, an adult can connect with you guys via humor, via, just their actions and their openness, and,
Right.
and you guys are testaments that you actually listened to what they said, I see it as definitely worthwhile.
I'd encourage us to do it at night again. If we brought in a different audience as well as for the students, there's no reason we couldn't provide both to open it up to the community as well.
Absolutely.
John?
Yeah, and I'd like to join my colleague Janet in congratulating you for doing this and for supporting it, especially for the administrative support that was given to it. And Sandy, your role in we've been doing it for a long while and doing it very well. The relevance of this program is brought into sharp focus if you've been following sporting news, what's going on with the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, a blatant racist comment put forward by an owner of an NBA team in the year 2014 it just drives home the point. We still have to educate people. And I'd like to see you broaden it. Frankly, race, class, and gender are all issues that we should be focusing on. So, thank you for a job well done. Keep it up.
I would just add that, I did not have an opportunity to attend this, so I do want it to come back. But I've had the opportunity to speak with Meredith Dragon and speak with Sue Weiss, who are obviously very, involved in the Jewish Federation, and they were incredibly thrilled that this was happening at Longmeadow High School. And I know the Federation, especially through Rachel Berzin, was very involved in this. And I think that is the type of outreach that needs to happen with all of the different, constituencies that live in Longmeadow. And so I think that they were very happy that they felt very a part of that. And that's really important, I think. And I'm very supportive of that. And I'd love to see us be able to bring in not just this again, but other types of content to speak to other types of constituent groups in Long Meadow. I think that's important. I mean, so really, really well done, and thank you so much for coming tonight. And I'm looking forward to this coming back because I would like to go to it. Joseph.
Thank you all for presenting to us tonight. I couldn't make it to the Black Dogs, but I would echo that if it came during the school day, I think you get a lot more participation, and you guys are all shining examples of what Long Meadow High School tries to produce in terms of diversity and being part of the community, so thank you.
Well said.
And Paul, I got you out of here early, so like you asked.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Have a great evening.
You too.
All right, moving right along into correspondence.
There is no correspondence for this meeting.
Wonderful. All right, moving right along into visitor comments.
Maybe we should wait.
Yeah, I know. Richard, visitor comments?
I was just saying that I think it would be nice if this could be presented to the whole community using the Long Meadow Community Service.
Yeah, I'll bring the mic over.
Okay.
You stay where you are.
No, I got it.
Sure, okay.
No problem. I'll identify myself for those who may not know me. Richard Elias, 608 Frank Smith Road. Before I get to what I was going to say, I would like to continue commenting about the presentation that was made. This is something that I think all communities should have. If they're going to do it again next year, which I think would be a fitting thing to do it every year if you could, to have it broadcast on Long Meadow Community TV live and then keep repeating it like they do your meetings. I was very fortunate in growing up. My dad was regular Army, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and I didn't see a lot of the things that have been going on, but I heard of them. I'm not deaf, dumb, and blind, but I really never saw it around the military. The color that they worried about was what was the bar on the shoulder, what was the rank on the sleeve, no matter what the color was. And the people accepted it. And really, there's no reason it's not done like that for everybody all the time. This country is a marvelous country. It's gone through a lot. And as long as we keep talking about and discussing things, there aren't going to be too many problems that we can't. It's when we don't discuss things and when things just fester. That's the problem. Now, what I came in to see, I'm asking ladies and gentlemen here to consider sending a message to our select board indicating that you do support the purchase of the Quint truck. Your school here is a marvelous school, but the fire department can't get to the top roofs of it, some of the windows and things like that, because the equipment we have is not adequate. When we were building the school, that was a big thing. Oh, by the time the school is built, we'll have the Quint truck. If you look at the whole community, all the buildings that are historic in this community, including our town buildings, they can't get to the roofs of those places either. So it is a great important thing. I have been working on this for a while, and I was very happy last year when the select board made the determination that they would support having a Quint truck, but they weren't trying to get private funding for some of it. I believe in going a little bit and take what you can get when you can get it, because you can improve on it. When this thing came up for it to be put to a vote, I thought it was something that was put by the town. I did not know it was part of a private function. But I think, heck, if we're going to have a fire, let's have the equipment before the fire instead of after it, because there was a nice home over on Frank Smith that burnt down, and if they had the truck, it could have been repaired instead of replaced. I don't know what's going to happen at the annual meeting. I know you have some factors that are of great interest and important to you and the children of this town. But also, if you would take consideration of this, and should it come to a vote, whether it is or not, I don't have the foggiest idea, because they said no, and then I heard some people saying yes. But if it did come to the vote, I would appreciate if the school committee and representing the children of Long Meadow would say yes, they feel it's a needed project. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
We'll go to comments and then. All right. Any other visitor comments tonight? Seeing none, I'll move on to school committee comments. John?
Okay, I'd like to respond to Richard's request. I think we should support the acquisition of a Quint truck. There was some dramatic footage in the news last week of a barn fire in Chicopee. And what enabled them to put that fire down was the fact that they had a Quint truck on the scene. And for everyone's information, that's a automated ladder goes up with a hose extension where you can direct water directly into the center of a fire. And there's a number of buildings, including Long Meadow High School's new building, which is higher than the older building was. There's Glen Meadow structures, and there's the Emerson Manor structures. So given the fact we've got a large amount of money in the Operational Stabilization Fund, it seems to me we ought to use it. And I liked your expression, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. You didn't quite say that, but that's the version I like. We don't want to say, gee, it would have been nice if we had a more advanced truck. And I believe the Select Board's response to this is to say, well, we have connections with Enfield and East Long Meadow, so we can always call on their trucks. But that's after you get to the scene of a fire, make an assessment, then make a call, and then wait for them to arrive. And these fast-burning fires, that's a margin I don't think we should have. So you have my support.
The people that are mostly vocal against it are the same ones that say we shouldn't have a mutual aid, that we have to send our trucks into East Long Meadow because they don't have an all-time fire department at night. But that's, goes both ways.
Yeah.
So if I, just to clarify though, it's currently not on the warrant. Is that correct? The select board voted to take it off the warrant?
Yeah, just yeah, not what arrived in the, it did not go on there.
Right. So is there a mechanism by which this can be brought forward at town meeting once it's been taken, if it's not on the warrant? I'm looking at the town manager. If you'd like.
Do you mind? That would be great.
Yeah, do you want to just provide some clarity? I mean, as much as you're capable of.
Is it even an option?
Good evening, members of the committee. The article, which was a citizen's petition initially, was taken off of the warrant. It was actually included on the warrant incorrectly. And I won't rehash all of that ground. It was reported in the paper, but it was we had received an opinion from town council that he subsequently revised when he understood more of the facts of the situation. So the warrant that will be considered by town meeting in a couple of weeks does not include the citizen's petition. So is there a vehicle to do that? I don't know all of the nuances of town meeting enough to say absolutely no, there's no vehicle, but there is not a warrant article. So I would defer to the moderator on any other method of doing it.
Other than, I believe, maybe the moderator could rule that because it was posted, it has to be voted on. That's a possibility.
It's up to the moderator.
And this petition did have the requisite number of signatures. It was submitted late, was that it?
It was submitted after the warrant was closed by the board, which means it was not submitted in the appropriate time. The original opinion had said that you can submit that citizen petitions must be accepted until it is posted. But truly, that opinion was given when town council was of the understanding that the warrant had not been closed by the select board.
But
The board had closed the warrant sometime before that.
But town council did give his opinion that the article should be on the warrant.
And then
And then
retracted
was
it.
voted to be, his advice, his legal expertise that we pay money for, was then rejected by,
No.
no.
He gave the opinion, learned more about the situation, revised his opinion, and then the warrant article was removed from the article was removed from the warrant, and the warrant was reposted. So.
Do we know how much the fire truck would cost?
The question is how much.
That I can give you some clarity on. The issue at hand for the quint, which quint is 5, obviously it's the derivation of the word of quint is for 5, and it does 5 functions: aerial, ground ladder, engine, I think pumper, and tanker. I think that's all of them, but that's the quint.
5,
It's not a brand name. It is a summary of the functions that the apparatus does. And right now, actually, two of our engines are nearing. They're getting to be 20 to 25 years old, and they recommend 25 years for a fire engine.
Right.
So we are due to replace a fire engine in the very near future. A fire engine by itself is about $500,000, just using round numbers. A quint is $750,000. And so the difference between a regular engine and a quint is $250,000. And so the issue that the select board has discussed and is generally supportive of proceeding with the quint, except they want some contributions from non-taxable, property owners, especially the largest ones in the community, which I think is not unreasonable. So really, it's only the 200. We have to replace the truck eventually, like in the next couple of years. So the question is, are we going to go the extra $250 for the quint?
Right.
And I actually am. I think I did announce the select board meeting with Glen Meadow, which is a fully taxable entity. In fact, I think they pay the highest property tax bill in the town. Contributed or pledged $10,000 towards a quint truck. So I want to give Glen Meadow some credit for that.
I mean, honestly, this has been a request from Chief Madison since I was on the finance committee in 2010, and he's made it very clear that he's been planning for it. That our annual contribution at town meeting is going towards this. And I mean, Richard and I had this conversation in the hallway. I mean, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's new to anybody. So I think it's just a matter of when do we actually make that, bite the bullet and do it. I would say that my opinion on this matter is that should the moderator allow this to be a question before town meeting, that I would be supportive of that warrant. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but haven't we been putting aside money towards this purchase? Isn't there already?
Yeah, we put like $75,000 aside each year.
Right,
There-
but that's been happening for the past few years, so we should, at this point, don't we have half of that cost?
I think there's about $275,000 or so in the truck fund.
Okay.
So yes.
So it's not the whole, when you're talking the 500,000 that we would need to appropriate, it's not the entire 500,000, it's,
The difference between what we saved in the truck fund.
so it's
and-
more 225 or somewhere.
Like I said, the real issue for discussion is, well, there's 2 points. Do we need one?
I
And
thought that it was understood that we need one in order to ensure that we can put out fires that are.
Ideally, it's more practical, is it not?
well, it's to some extent, there are different views on that subject. But so the question is, do we need one, and is it worth $250,000 to have extra? to have it. We did have the vendor who supplies, who sells those trucks in this region, did bring one here, and we had a demonstration. And it is a very versatile apparatus, and you can imagine, we do have mutual aid agreements, and we do get good assistance from the other towns. I mean, East Longmeadow and really it's North Thompsonville, which is the fire district in Enfield, are volunteer departments. Nevertheless, they do have, you know, good response times and it was when that East Longmeadow aerial apparatus showed up I was actually happened to be at that Frank Smith Road fire. It did make a significant difference, and I think what was illustrative for me was the concept of reach, not height.
Right.
You know, the Frank Smith Road is a split level house. It's not even the second floor of the high school.
Right.
And it has fairly normal setbacks from the road. And it was the ability to reach out of the ladder over the roof of the house and spray water directly down on it. That was, to me, the noticeable difference. And the Quint that we saw in the demonstration, they were able to, we drove it around town and took it down some of the more narrow streets and was able to fit fine. And they brought it back to the fire department and were able to get it set to play. They call them the jacks, the things that stick out the side to stabilize the truck. Connect it to water, lift I think they call it a stick, if I'm going to use firefighter lingo, and spray water into the woods. I mean, 2 minutes, maybe. And it was one guy on the side of the truck doing all of it.
Right.
So you can control, in fact, they let me handle the controls and do things pretty neat. You can change a stream to a fan and do all, it was pretty fun.
So.
I did not get to ring the bell, but I did get to
And there's
go
no
up
poll anymore.
Is
there? And they did
there,
let me go up the ladder too, which was cool.
Janet and then John.
is there the potential to purchase a pre-owned Quint truck that might be less expensive?
I suppose the potential's always there. I know we typically, because you're going to get 25 years out of a vehicle, they usually buy new, and there are certain there are certain specifications that each department has depending on its level of staffing and everything else. So we could maybe find one out there, but I know this department usually orders new, and then we have them for a very long time.
You say there's a difference of opinion as to whether we need this or not. What is the fire chief, Chief Madsen's position?
He believes it would greatly enhance the capability of the
Well, is there
department.
anyone equal to him dissenting? I mean, he's the expert on fire prevention and fire termination.
I don't want to speak for anybody else, but people who
Well, I'm just wondering who these other experts are.
Well, I know people who
Or
are
are they
interested,
experts, I
people who
guess?
are interested in the issue have done their own research, and like on every subject that comes before us in public life, people are entitled to do their research and form their own opinions.
All right. So why don't do we have any other questions on this, or can we kind of move on?
Do we need a motion, or is a motion appropriate, or what?
I mean, I think I don't know if it's appropriate to make a motion on something that potentially is hypothetical in nature at the moment. Because right now it's a matter of if the moderator will allow it, what are we going to do? But there's no guarantee that he's going to allow it at all.
We won't find out till town meeting.
And we won't find out till town meeting. So, I'm comfortable saying that I support it, and I don't know if consensus, is good enough. I don't know.
Well, is there a consensus, or?
I support it.
All right.
So let the record show there's a consensus in support of this? Is that appropriate?
I think it's very appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other school committee comments?
I have,
On another topic, go ahead.
I'll do. Me? Okay, I have a question and a comment.
Sure.
Okay, I'll start with two comments. First, I just wanted to clarify two things in the local papers this week. First, in the Longmeadow News article summarizing the Meet the Candidates night, it said that the preliminary election between myself, Heather Lepore, and Matthew Brackman is on May 20th, when in fact it's on Tuesday, May 6th. So I just want to get the word out correctly. because this election is very important, and it's little known because it's the only thing on the ballot that day. So I also want to explain, because I've heard some people that don't understand why there are 2 elections for this seat. So there are 3 candidates all in the same ticket, so there needs to be a primary election to eliminate 1 candidate, so that going forward in the general election on June 3rd, there are only 2 candidates on the ballot. So this preliminary election is Tuesday, May 6th. At the Community House, polls are open 8 to 8. The 2 winners of this election will be on the June 3rd ballot. I also want to clarify that I am not running against John, Michael, or Liz, because there's also confusion on that. You are all running unopposed, and I am running on my own ticket. I just wanted to clarify that on record. The second thing I wanted to, from the paper, in this town events section of the reminder, it states that there will be a debate this Friday at the high school between 2 of the 3 candidates competing for the 1-year term, Heather and Matthew and myself. It stated that the 3rd candidate, myself, declined to attend. I just want to clarify this because many have asked me why I declined. I've had a trip planned since November, long before anything with school committee transpired. And I will be out of town Wednesday morning, returning late Saturday night, so I won't be there. I did suggest to the coordinator an alternate time frame so that I could be there, but this was the only date that could work. So I just want everyone to know that I appreciated the invitation, that I would have liked to be there, but it wasn't just that I declined. So I am sending in to the coordinator a written statement, which I hope will cover some of the topics that might be addressed, and hopefully someone can read it at the debate.
They took all my announcements away.
Well, I have one more thing, if I can keep talking.
Yeah, please, keep talking.
As it relates to the current school committee business, I have a question for Marie or the kindergarten committee, and then a comment to everyone. I want to comment and express to my colleagues, especially as the new kid on the block, that I think there is still a lot of confusion in the community regarding the full-day kindergarten program. I know from my own personal experience that there is a tremendous amount of information being passed around through word of mouth, Facebook, and other social media venues. And I would like to make sense of all the facts regarding this situation has been very difficult, especially once opinions and interpretations start circulating. So I've been asked both in private and public settings how I feel about the full-day kindergarten, and each time I've said that I was still working diligently to gather information from the primary sources involved, the kindergarten committee, recorded forums, survey results, press releases, websites such as Mass Department of Education, in order to make a truly fact-based analysis versus an opinion or secondary sources analysis of the facts. I know this is a lot of information that went into this decision, but I would like to recommend that we develop and release a summary and explanation to the public, if possible, beginning with how and why the transition to full day was researched, and ending with exactly what is expected to be proposed and by whom at the town meeting on May 13th. If we could possibly make it available through the town or Longmeadow Public Schools website, I think it would be extremely beneficial for the community, just based on what I've heard from a lot of people, and then the work that I put into trying to gather my own first-hand facts. So that was my thoughts. And then one specific thing that I want to ask Marie or the kindergarten committee, because I think this specific question is the source of a lot of confusion right now. Is the full-day curriculum the same as the half-day curriculum? I know in the past with the lottery system and the higher fee of $4,100, the curriculum and the content covered had to be the same in the half-day as the full-day. So is it still that way? Is the content and the curriculum the same? For whoever should answer. Who wants it?
The first thing, there is a kindergarten report, which is online, posted online, that goes through the entire study, recommendations, why we came up with the decisions that we did. So I would refer people to that site to read the report.
To the Longmeadow Public Schools
Longmeadow
website.
Public Schools website for the report on the kindergarten study. The second piece is, I think we'll be discussing later a proposal for town meeting and what the school committee's opinion will be at town meeting. So we'll have an answer for that. The curriculum will be the same for the half-day as full-day. It will be, the full-day program will have more time to go in depth, integrated into what they're doing. They'll have more time for use of technology, and also have time to examine a little bit more, but the curriculum will be the same.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then one final point, question, do the parents need to use the binders that are going out for the
They
half-day
do not.
students?
They do not.
Okay.
The students will be monitored through different assessment tools such as the BAS, and when we assess them, we'll find out whether or not they need interventions early on, so that we should be able to catch students, whether they're full day or half day, that need support during the kindergarten year.
And that will be done, that won't need to be done by the parents, that will be done
No,
within
they'll
the
be done all
schools.
internally. We'll be monitoring the students throughout the year to make sure that they're progressing at a rate that we feel is sufficient, and there'll be tools in place and supports in place if students need extra help.
Thank you, I think that helps a lot.
The longest school committee comments ever.
I know.
Can I just ask a quick question, just for my own peace of mind?
Yeah.
Like, with talk of this binder, are we gonna have it available to full and half-day
Sure.
parents? So whoever wants it can sort of have access.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And can I just make a comment about this binder, that it seems to be a source of frustration or, I don't know, aggravation or freaking out or whatever I keep seeing. And I have to say, I talked with a couple parents a couple weeks ago that are in a current classroom of the teacher that's handing out the binders that gave you the idea, kind of. And they love it. And I just wanted, she said every Tuesday she gets sent home paperwork that is appropriate for her child. It's adjusted to what her specific child's needs are. She said, Thursday she's getting home books that are just right books for her child and what her child. She was so happy with the half-day teacher that is at Blueberry that's teaching this. Well, she couldn't say enough good things. So I just wanted to make sure that people understand that it's not something that we should get upset about.
It's a reference. I think that parents want to know what's expected of their children, both half-day and full-day, and what they should be mastering. And this is just a tool that they can use at home if they choose to do that, and if they don't, that's fine too. So,
John.
nothing.
Okay, I just want to repeat what Michelle was saying about the 6th of May. 6th of May is a special primary to winnow down the number of school committee candidates from 3 to 2. And the polls are open from 8 to 8, and all the voting's at the Long Meadow Community House. You can also vote with absentee ballot if you're going to be out of town. And that's an act that can be completed in something like 5 minutes or less. You just go to the town office, ask for an absentee ballot, fill in the application, then they give you the ballot, and then you vote it. So that's one way of getting your voice into it. The second date I'd like to remind everyone of is the 13th of May, the town meeting. It starts at 7 o'clock. It's going to be here at the Long Meadow High School. There's going to be a lot of information on the agenda and a lot of discussion. And if you've been following some of the social media, you know that there's already a lot of lies and distortions being put out about slashing the library budget, slashing the senior citizens budget. There's a lot of flack that's out there. Please read the warrant, attend the meeting, and vote your conscience. Thank you.
Okay. I just have two, Kim, go for it.
I have something on. So first I want to remind everyone about the bike swap we have this weekend in the community house. It's not the, I work with the Long Meadow Transition Group, a group within the community, and we are hosting our second annual bike swap at the community house. So I encourage people to come on down, and Massachusetts Safe Routes for School will be there from 9:30 to 12. Weather permitting, as long as it doesn't rain, and they'll have a bike rodeo in the back. So you don't have to be looking to buy something, just come learn about bike safety. Also, there's still time tonight. The Long Meadow High School baseball fundraiser is going on over at White Hut, Peach Wave, and Bertucci's. So if you mention this and you haven't eaten dinner yet, go on out and get something. And Wednesday is the lacrosse fundraiser at Bertucci's. So Wednesday's another night that you don't have to cook. I keep running into everyone at Big Y, and last week I ran into the softball team, the girls softball team from the high school who was there as well. I have to say that Big Y, I'm so happy that they support all of our teams and let them be outside. And then I have one question that I do need a little bit of clarity on. I of course read the Facebook websites and get questions asked at me at baseball games recently, and I guess it's a question to clarify how town meeting actually works?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want the entire process? or
No,
something?
no, there was a question, I'm going to read this just because I think it would be easier for me just to read.
Sure.
Someone had a question. It says, in reviewing the meeting warrant, I noticed that only those issued a colored card may vote at town meeting.
Mhm.
How do I get a colored card? Also, when are motions made, beginning or ending of meeting?
Sure. That's a great question. And a very simple process is very similar to voting, when you go to the community house on election day, when you enter the high school, there will be tables by precinct where you will sign in, because this is an act of voting, and you'll be handed a colored card. What's this year's color, Stephen?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yellow.
Usually yellow.
You do have to be a registered voter.
You do need to be a registered voter in the town of Longmeadow in order to vote. And motions are made as we go through the warrant. So the meeting will be opened, and then the moderator will call the meeting to order, and he will ask one of the members of the select board, I don't know what order they're choosing, usually they divide it up by, they divide it by 5, to read those motions. Those motions are made in order and seconded, and then, obviously discussion afterwards.
Okay.
The typical rule of thumb on any question before town meeting is that you get 5 for and 5 against as far as people speaking to that motion. So the moderator will probably limit it, and at that point you can call the question. Something I'd like to do later
Basically, you
on.
just need to be a registered voter.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you get
So
your card when you come in, and you give them your precinct, and
yep, it should be very, very easy to follow. It should be very accessible. Okay. And I just have one quick comment. I was speaking with my friend on the Ludlow School Committee, Jake Oliveira, who I think John and Marie both know from the collaborative, and he just told me how incredibly helpful Marie was throughout the selection process for the new collaborative director. So I just wanted to pass on some compliments you got from other members of the collaborative. You were very, very helpful.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. Joseph?
One more question about town meeting. I don't know if anyone remembers when Michelle Shine spoke about last year. Just for clarification, do you have to be a registered voter above the age of 18 to speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. In fact, if you are not a registered voter in the town of Longmeadow, and Liz Roman, who's sitting in the audience tonight, can attest to this, they shove you in a very special section with the press. It's like the leper section, I think is what they call it. So.
Well, there's yet another way you can speak. If you're a administrative official, like the fire chief or head of DPW, superintendent of schools, you can speak to the merits of a question, offering the pros and cons.
Yes.
So those people are seated on the floor. They cannot vote, though.
Unless they're residents.
Unless they live here and are registered to vote. Gotcha.
Stephen's really defensive of his right to vote.
I'm sorry, I would just...
Please approach the bench.
No, if questions about logistics, please call Catherine Ingram, the town clerk.
Catherine Ingram?
Catherine Ingram. Refer people to her. She has been handling this for a long time. It's very good. In terms of questions about how the meeting is moderated, they should call Mike Calick. He's an elected official, and he's, I'm sure, happy to answer questions.
Yeah. Just to give a quick repeat of what Mr. Crane said over there, he said, with any questions with regard to logistics for town meeting, you can call either Catherine Ingram or Jackie Sullivan, the clerk and assistant town clerk. And with questions about town meeting and the warrant itself, you can call Mike Calick, who is our town moderator, and that he is an elected official, so he should be responsive to you as well. And Kathy's number is listed on the town website, and Mike's is in the book, so he's going to be loving that I just put that out there. All right, are we ready to move on? Any other school committee comments? Wonderful.
Record breaker.
It was a record breaker. All right, I'm going to rearrange the agenda just a little bit because Stephen's been sitting here long enough.
I was going to stay here.
Okay. Fine, all right, we'll keep going. Then never mind, I'm not going to rearrange it. So we're going to move right along into superintendent report.
Okay.
Superintendent Doyle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We continue to make progress with the building project. We're whittling down the list. We have not seen a list now in a couple of weeks, so I've called for another meeting. We also have commissioning going on right now where the state sends people out, they look over the project and they decide whether or not it's completed to their satisfaction, and that's called commissioning. That's underway in several areas as well. We've asked the project manager to postpone the commissioning of the HVAC system until next winter, because we don't want a mock trial, because we won't know whether or not the heating is working appropriately with all the adjustments that they've made. So we'll be pushing for that to make sure that we have that operating in real conditions and not simulated.
Marie, can I ask, when is the next high school building committee meeting? Is it May 1st?
I believe it is.
It's Thursday at 2:30, I think.
That's a different meeting. You're talking about the evening meeting?
No, it's posted for 2:30.
2:30?
On the town website.
Okay.
It's posted 2:30, not 7?
2:30. I'm looking at it right now.
I'll verify that, John, and get back to you.
Okay,
I
because
thought
I
that
was
was the
not
working
informed of
group.
that. Normally, we were meeting the 3rd Thursday.
And because of vacation, it was postponed.
Yeah.
Because
I
of
thought it was Thursday
vacation
night.
and the religious holidays.
2:30.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it says on the website 2:30, and it goes through all the different updates. So
Great.
All right, thank you.
maybe it was misposted.
It could be too, because we've asked for the special meeting to go through the punch list and to see what progress is being made, and it's easier for a lot of the people that work on the building committee to come during the day, so. All right, Long Meadow's Got Talent. High school students organized this in order to do fundraisers for community service. There were many middle school students and others involved and showcased their talent. I understand it was a great performance. I did not get to see it, but people spoke very highly of it. I'm impressed with the high school students that organized it, because they also had raffles that you could buy. They sold the tickets. They did a lot of organizing. Very, very impressive work by our high school students. An Alert Now message was sent out to the community, parents, and the press in response to the kindergarten grant letter. The district website has a copy posted. It talks about the process that we went through, the timeline that we had as opposed to the state timeline for applying for the transition to full-day kindergarten grant. We've been on the phone with them to see what our standings would be for the second part of the grant. I spoke with 2 people today, and I'm speaking to the commissioner tomorrow, writing a letter to see if they would accept us for the full-day application, given the timeline was off. The other thing that we can do is apply for the transition grant next year, but that grant would then put us back in the planning stage, and we would be eligible to apply for funding in the following year for any classes that move to full-day kindergarten. They said that if you do get the funding, and that's an if, that it's averaging $6,000 to $10,000 per classroom that's moving to full-day, so that it would depend how many additional classrooms we would have that year, but I know that there are all kinds of rumors floating around about the amount of money that you would get, so it's definitely $6,000 to $10,000, and the majority, and those are the districts that actually receive funding under that, okay? And then Long Meadow's Lifelong Learning Program is a huge success. We have 7 courses currently running. There's Spanish 1, French 1, Introductory Spanish, Long Meadow, Puritan Village to Modern Suburb, and that should not say superb, sorry about that, suburb, iPad Technology, Foundations of Mindfulness, and Knitting Newbies. So we're delighted that this many courses have taken off and there's this much community involvement in taking lifelong learning courses. The administrative team is working on a district newsletter, so we hope to release that in 2 weeks. The kindergarten orientation will be held on June 13th, and a notice has gone out to all incoming kindergarten parents. Registration continues, and the numbers are as follows. 118 students are registered for full day, and 16 students for the half-day program. We also had Lauren Padella is a high school student, and she did a fashion art show last week, 2 weeks ago, before the vacation. She actually is a journalist who does fashion journalism and submits articles to the Republican that gives her thoughts on fashion. She also sketches design, and then she sews them. And so this art show actually had her articles and opinions on fashion, as well as the sketches, design she's made, and she made pieces and sewed them together. She's absolutely amazing. She's a senior who's hoping to go to the NYU, and I'm certainly sure they'll be delighted to get her. It's just such a multitude of talent. It was very, very impressive. We also had a good turnout for the opiate presentation. I would say a couple hundred people, Janet?
Probably.
And there was a panel of about 15 people. They showed a movie about St. Albans, Vermont, that talked about the epidemic there and how it can hit any community, and it crosses all socioeconomic lines. We are going to have a committee of educators and parents to talk about a series of presentations next year, so we can talk about proactive programs such as developmental issues in middle school. We can talk about maybe some of the elementary issues that parents are struggling with, and have that program running through a series of parent informative programs. The literacy, we met with the elementary staff today, Kelly, the elementary principals, and I, and we talked about what's happening, the 5-year plan, because there were questions on what that 5-year plan is. We went through it because we're in year 3 right now. We talked about what it's going to look like as we introduce RTI and continue with our Readers Workshop and Writers Workshop. I think the biggest introduction for discussion is the schedule. We're proposing that school for elementary actually starts at 8:30 on the nose. That's a hard start time, and actually goes till 3 o'clock when the bell rings. That is something that clearly will involve discussions with the union. It will involve negotiations, I'm sure, next year. But when we look at offering 45 minutes for Readers Workshop, 45 minutes for Writers Workshop, 25 minutes for word study or phonics, as well as 60 minutes for math, and then another 40 minutes for science and social studies, plus a special. It's a pretty packed schedule. So I think we're going to have to look at that and really work the elementary staff to expand what time we're actually have face time with students in front of us to maximize learning opportunities. And that's it.
Great. Any questions for Marie?
Question,
Janet?
Marie, how was that received? The extended day?
I think there were mixed reviews. I think there are some people that understand we need more time because the stress the teachers are feeling, a lot of it has to do with not having enough time. I think one question was asked, you're asking us to increase our time, which is something that we expect that will come to the negotiating table. We've been talking about this a long time, but we've never formally put it out there. So I let them know that we are talking about this, and it will be coming to the table. In contractually, it's within the bounds of what we're looking at, but it's something that we should talk about with the staff, with the union and the association, and come to an agreement on. I think the teachers recognize this is best for kids, so it's just a matter now of working out any details that might arise.
Okay.
Joseph?
How are those hours different from the current hours?
The elementary, some of them are beginning to start at 8:30 right now, and some of them mosey in and start about 8:45. So students are arriving between those hours, but it's not really a firm start time at some of the schools. I know that some of the schools have pushed back to 8:30, and now they begin to clean up at about 2:45, so that they're actually leaving the classroom more around 2:45 than 3. So
Is it like a
probably 15
homeroom?
minutes morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon.
Is it like a homeroom in the morning? Is that how they kind of like?
It's morning meeting, but as students are coming in, it's unpacking, it might be morning work, but if you don't have everyone in the room, you can't really begin. And one of the things that the staff is saying is they don't have time for morning meeting, which is extremely important. It's where you bring your social groups together, you talk about plans for the day, and that's feeling like it's stress. So this additional 15 minutes in the morning would make sure that they have that time to get the kids organized and build that sense of community in the classroom.
You know, at Blueberry, they're letting the kids in the classroom 15 minutes earlier or 10 minutes, I think, earlier than they were last year. And they seem to be, the teachers seem to really find that time useful. And
very useful.
I know my son is, he enjoys getting there right at 8:30 when the teachers, when the bell rings and they can all get in there. And I personally think it's a great idea because they're getting in, they're getting settled, and they're ready. Those kids are ready to go at 8:40.
Yep.
Right.
And it's just what happened with the middle school. We had a change in schedule there, but it's a matter of coming to the table and talking and working through any details that we have. But I saw a lot of nods because I think the teachers feel like more and more is being added to the curriculum, but knowledge doubles every 4 years. We're expecting the students to know more and more, but we're not increasing the time that we're spending working with them or giving them chances to learn in school.
John?
Has any thought been given to opening the high school later? There's some research out there that indicates high school students are not getting enough sleep.
Yeah. This conversation's been
This
around.
is a serious proposal, and it's.
Oh, I know. It's been around
moving
8 to 10
a
years,
lot of-
though. It's not new.
It's not just a chance to sleep late. It's,
They do studies, and our high school students would like to sleep in more till 11 or 12 o'clock. It's a natural biorhythm, and they really peak at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when their maximum learning time is. The problem is the adults crash. The worst time for the adults is 3 o'clock. But even if you put that aside and say, okay, we'll compromise and we'll try and do it in the middle, the problem is that if you move the high school hours later, then students who work after school no longer can work, and some of them have to do that for financial reasons. The other thing is every single high school has to do it because you have athletics.
You need
And
a
if you have
buy-in.
one school that doesn't do it, and if we move our time and our kids getting out later and we can't play in interscholastic sports, it's a problem. So we've discussed this. One of the groups that we're in the East Coast, we seriously considered it. We had a group of 25 superintendents working on it, and finally realized that because students couldn't work after school and because it interfered with the scholastics, we decided no. And the reality of adults crashing when they're supposed to be teaching kids was a little frightening too. We thought the students adjusted better than the adults. So.
Katie?
Do these changes have any sort of domino effect on the middle school schedule or the high school?
It shouldn't. We have to look into the busing. That's the one piece that we have to look at to see whether we'd have to adjust buses a little bit. We don't think so, but we have to work with the transportation company. That would be the only thing if we had to move something 5 to 10 minutes to make sure the buses got in on time.
Okay. Any other questions for Marie?
No comment. I know that I've been doing my own research on this, and I hope we can make at least a little bit of difference in our length of day. Our kids are in school the shortest amount of time as when you compare them to East Longmeadow. I mean, Springfield goes 40 minutes longer than us. A lot of the schools I looked at, they go, West Springfield goes 8:15 to 2:45. East Longmeadow goes 8:15 to 2:30. You know, Holliston goes 8:45 to 3:15. Like, these are schools that our kids are going to be competing against when they get older. They've got, I think it's something we should continue to look at.
I said to the teachers, I'm even open to discussing longer than the hours that were proposed. The hours that I shared today are within the parameters of the contract, but you would have to call it a change in working conditions. But if we're really talking about the stress of the day being the pace, you can't keep up, and the schedule we presented them still didn't have built-in passing time, and they said, you don't have passing time in there. So we're open to that, and I did put that out there. If they feel like if they need more time, that's something we should be discussing right now.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
You'll be hearing about it, I'm sure.
All right, great. So, moving right along to my report. I don't have much of a report today because, vacation, not a lot going on. But I did want to bring up one thing that a member of the community had brought up to me, which was that our email addresses are not listed on the website, which I understand because Diane does want to collect correspondence through the SC email. But right now, if things go to SC email, let's say Diane's out for the day or out, on vacation, we don't get those emails because only she gets those emails. And so I'm thinking as, maybe like a compromise position on, making sure that we're getting correspondence recorded properly would be that when someone sends an email to SC email, it comes to all of us instead of just going directly to Diane.
Make it a group email.
Yeah.
So that it goes to everybody on the school committee.
And me.
So that I can get it recorded.
The other alternative is that we say for formal correspondence, email this, and then we list our email addresses on there. But I understand that makes it harder for you to track what's formal correspondence, and we have to be more responsible for making that.
We can list them all individually.
Yeah.
The issue was if you get email directed totally at you, I'm not aware of it, and then it doesn't get recorded as official unless you bring it to my attention.
Right.
And if you can all bring it to my attention, then I don't need to even see it until it gets recorded.
But how do we go about what's formal and what's not? Let's say they want to email Michael and say, is the student council coming at 6 o'clock tonight?
Right.
They need to contact him, and that's okay.
Right.
And I think to have the addresses would enable people to ask a quick question. But if it's something that's a formal request, it definitely has to go through the group.
And especially when you look at what other district websites look like, they all list their individual email addresses.
We can get them up there.
Yeah. I mean, but obviously I don't want to make it more difficult for, you to be able to keep track of stuff.
You guys can all forward whatever you want officially.
True.
So.
How does everybody feel about that?
I like the group email thing, like where we each have our own, but then they're copied automatically or something, because I just worry that we'll have trouble keeping track of forwarding it back to Diane. So as
Right.
long as, right?
I agree.
If the group email was sent to everyone, then if someone could just ask a question like you suggested generally, and if you didn't see the email, I'm sure one of the 7 members would, so they'd have a higher likelihood of getting a response.
Right. All right, so that, okay, cool. So, check that one off my list of
So we're gonna
issues
have
brought up
our,
to
so
me.
we're gonna have our individual addresses listed. Anytime someone clicks on Michelle and writes to me, it will go to everyone still? Is that, am I clarifying? No.
I think what
But
we'll
you'll
do
get a
is-
copy of it.
I think what we'll do is we'll keep
I don't
it,
think, do you want your emails individually listed on the website? Just yes or no?
I'm okay with that. I mean,
Okay, then that's email that will go directly to you.
Okay.
If somebody types your email address, I don't get a copy, it does get archived. So it's permanent in.
Right.
In the tech department, but I don't, unless you want it formally introduced into
correspondence.
school committee correspondence, then just, it has to be brought to my attention.
Okay.
And I think at that point, if you have something that's questionable that's come to a member, you talk to the chair or you talk to me, and we'll process with you whether that should go to the meeting or not. Because some of them will just be wanting information that you can answer, so.
Sure. John?
Yeah, I'm with it as long as it doesn't jeopardize our tradition of transparency.
Right.
That people communicate with us and we acknowledge getting something, so, so we're not changing that.
No, I think now it would just make it easier for members of the community to be able to contact us directly rather than, because sometimes, I mean, even in here, there's stuff that's like addressed to me, or there's stuff that's addressed to Janet, and, nobody writes to you, that's right. All right, cool. So, check that one off. That's all I really have. Joseph?
Just 2 quick things. Well, I'll try to make it quick. First, I'd also like to echo the superintendent that Lauren Padilla, a member of my class, 2015, did an excellent job at our fashion expedition. She really represents what Long Meadow High School has to offer to the community. Like you said, she is an aspiring journalist and writes for the Springfield newspaper. And we can't wait to have her help us with the senior class play in the terms of fashion and design. So I
Is she a junior or senior?
She's a junior.
A junior, my
class.
apologies, I thought that after I said senior. Okay.
I just have a real quick review of what we've been doing.
Joseph loves his technology.
How to use it. Use it or lose it.
See, if we were still meeting in the police department, you couldn't do all this.
All right. We don't want to give them any reason to throw us back there.
You like those chairs more, though.
All right. So I'm just gonna. It's just 5 slides. Don't worry. I'm just gonna quickly review what we've been working on so far this year, because we are almost done with the 2014 school year, and what we will work on next year. So, if anyone's wondering, the elections will be held the first week in June. Student representation at every meeting of the school committee thus far this year. Student body of Long Meadow High School and the students of Long Meadow Public Schools have had representation in some form. And both me and the members of the School Committee Advisory Council are always available to answer questions to both the committee and community members at large about what's going on at the high school. We began our year with work on parking and traffic. At the beginning of the year, the school had just officially opened, and there were a lot of issues with traffic flow and drop-off pickup. And throughout the year, that has all been pretty much fixed. Now that, as we've all gone over, the town has placed do not enter signs. We have a lot of signage in the actual, the horseshoe that has really improved the flow of traffic. So that we can check that off our list. We put together a report on parking fees to explain to students in the community why the Long Meadow High School charges for parking, how much it charges, how much it charged in the past, what other communities charge, things like that. So we're very proud of that. today we're working on electronic report cards. We just had our SCAC meeting where we discussed getting school committee, admin, guidance, IT, all and other stakeholders together to talk about e-report cards, something that could both improve efficiency and become a more green district. We're working closely with IT to take the necessary next steps to implement this for the next school year. We are also working on transition to high school. So middle school to high school, we're looking at different ways to improve the step-up process, maybe an electronic brochure, maybe a fair, a bunch of different ideas are suggested, and we're going to look into all of them. And for 2015 and beyond, we have a very bright future here at LHS. We plan to take full advantage of the new building and all the opportunities it provides us. The biggest major undertaking that I foresee for the 2015 school year is looking at open campus for upperclassmen during lunch. And I invite you to please see our other presentation for information on that. We are currently following up with the administration of the high school to look into that in its entirety and see if it's possible, and then how to do it. Thank you very much, and I hope to stay with you for the next year.
We do too.
Any questions that need answering, any real-time updates that you'd like, please email me, jorinal@longmeadow.k12.ma.us. Anyone from the community or the town or the school committee or the students of Long Meadow High School, always available, always ready. So thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Joseph.
What's that?
They can follow you on Facebook, right?
Of course, we have a Long Meadow High School School Committee Student Advisory page. You'll see our Facebook profile pictures of the high school, and our cover photo is from the lock-in of the 2015 class. Like us on Facebook. I always post a link to my notes from each meeting. And yeah, if my email could be put on the high school the
Just add
website,
mine
that'd be
onto the
awesome.
list.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I'm always just so impressed by Joseph.
Thank you.
You know? Plus, every time I say nice things, every time I go into Rinaldi's, I get a nice pat on the back, so. But, no, great, you've done a great job this year, and, we obviously have a couple more meetings before the end of the year, but I think I speak for everybody when I say we wish you the best of luck in your re-election campaign.
Yes.
And as with all of you.
If you need any help with oppositional research,
We don't do much of that.
Oh, okay. All right, great. So moving right along into finance report.
Okay. Finance Subcommittee met on April 25th, excuse me. We also met on April 3rd, right? But the relevant one is the 25th. We had reviewed the management letter and the financial statements for the town. There was a facility use request from a group, the Indian Association of Greater Springfield, requesting use of Glenbrook Middle School auditorium for about 150 participants, and that's to occur on Sunday, September 14th, 2014, and it'll go from 3 until 6 p.m. So I'd like to move that we approve the use of the building for that group.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I've got some questions about this. How big is the auditorium at Glenbrook?
I believe capacity is somewhere in the 450 to 500.
Okay. Always seems smaller. What's the purpose of the event?
They are a group that recognizes their Indian heritage, and it's a celebration.
Okay. Why are they requesting Glenbrook over the high school?
They used it earlier in the fall, I believe, or the end of last year, and they were very happy with the facility, and they asked to go back there. So.
Okay, so they've been here before.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay.
Do they know that the high school is recently opened?
I believe so. It was available to them when they put in their last request. So.
I'm happier to keep the rentals at other schools.
Yeah, I'm sure Glenbrook will serve them well. It looks pretty big from when you're
It's a nice
sitting down.
auditorium.
Yeah, it's very, very
Yeah,
nice.
very nice.
And
Sure.
if they were happy before.
Keep them happy.
Yeah, I mean, okay, cool.
Please.
All right, so any other questions? I actually have one other question. Isn't this something you guys usually decide in Finance Sub, or was there a rush on it?
No, the committee back in the winter amended your policy that
That's
there
right.
are two exceptions
Forgot to do
now that require school committee approval, and those would be any recurring requests.
That's right.
Or any events that have an estimated participation of over 150 individuals, excluding youth sporting events.
I forgot about that 150 clause in there.
Sorry, it's 50. Sorry. More than 50 participants.
Okay. All right. So, without further ado, any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? The motion carries. None opposed. All right.
Okay, the Finance Subcommittee had a discussion regarding possible ramifications of a change to the school department budget for 2014-15 as a result of town meeting actions. And Janet, you want to talk to that, or speak to that?
With the kindergarten change from the current program to the recommended changes for next year, it has been brought to our attention that there is the possibility that an amendment be made on town floor to amend the budget to include the funding for the full-day kindergarten program, and have that be amended at the town meeting. And so with that, the school committee would be asked to speak to that request, and if we are in favor of accepting the money or if we are not. And I thought that it was important that we as a committee come to consensus, and therefore we wouldn't all be having to speak, and extend the length of the town meeting, which looks like it's going to be pretty lengthy anyhow. So my question that I would like to propose to vote tonight is, if offered funding, additional funding to our budget, will we as a school committee accept it?
I'd like to second that for purposes of discussion.
I don't think there was a motion.
I thought you made a motion.
I moved that we vote.
Oh, you moved. I didn't hear the move. Okay.
I may not have moved, but I do move.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Let's discuss.
Anyone want to?
Anybody going to discuss this?
Where's the funding coming from?
We don't know. That would be up to the town manager and select board to balance the town's budget. School committee did present a balanced budget to the town. I don't know where the proposed money is being asked for, where it's being requested from. I just know that the question potentially to be asked of the school committee is, would we accept the funding if it were made available?
Why wouldn't we accept additional funding?
I understand that, but some people may not feel that way. That's why I thought that we need to be clear as a committee of where we stand, just so that we are speaking as a group and not one person, right, that we're not individually all speaking.
Katie?
I think my feeling is that the whole spirit behind town meeting form of government is that it's the people's voice being heard and the people's say. So if there's a vote on town meeting floor, I think that it would be our duty as elected officials to respect what the voters have to say at town meeting. So I feel like we could not conscionably not accept the money. Saying that, I guess my concern is, where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Mr. Crane can tell us where it could come from.
At the discretion of the chair and the committee, I'm happy to participate in the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here, come on up.
I'm not sure that's really the issue. I think the issue is around
what
what your
your
response would be and what the school committee's response is. And I think at that point, it would be up to Mr. Crane to explain, if the money was accepted, how it would be used at town meeting.
Okay.
But
Yeah. If I could?
Please.
I support this proposal. Number one, I concur with Katie about, town meeting is the legislative arm of the town government. The select board is the executive arm, and we don't have a judicial branch. We have a legal counsel, but their counsel is ignored periodically. If the amendment on kindergarten funding is passed by town meeting, the budget will not be in balance, and therefore, we have to make some adjustments. Now, those adjustments can be made at this town meeting of the 13th, or, as was the case last year, the fall town meeting can address the imbalance and take care of it. This is after give-backs by the various town boards are returned to the town at the end of this current fiscal year, and we can come up with a reasonable figure of just how much we have to move around in the budget to accommodate free all-day kindergarten. So my position is we are not opposed to having free all-day kindergarten if that is the will of the town.
I think we just need to make clear that we made our initial decision based on directives that were given to us and the financial situations of the town when we had to approve our budget in February. So when we approved our budget back in February, the town was facing a possible $400,000 deficit. So if that is not the situation at town meeting, then of course, you know, we would, I guess, and if the money were to get transferred and
Well,
I guess we would.
Right.
Well, I think, I think that we were all pretty clear when the kindergarten recommendation was made that we wished that we could have free full-day kindergarten, that was our ideal, but the financial reality of that was being presented to us at the time sort of forced our hand this way. And, if things have changed, or if it's the will of the people that, things are sort of altered anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we certainly said that we aspired to be able to offer it, but obviously conditions beyond our control prevented us from doing so, and we voted on the budget we currently have. Mr. Crane?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I don't want to overstep.
No, you can come.
Thank you.
I think it's important.
Thank you for allowing me a chance to respond to some of the questions that were raised. I think, and I don't want to get into the debate too deeply, I just want to kind of clarify a few basic financial parameters for the town, if I may. The financial situation really has not changed all that much from an operational standpoint. And if Mr. Mazza disagrees with any of these statements, he's welcome to correct me. I'm sure he's forgotten more about budgeting than I know. Things like turnbacks and what we call free cash or operational stabilization, those are one-time funds. And you get them by budgeting conservatively and then at the end of the fiscal year having either your expenses come in less than you thought they were going to be, or your revenues come in greater than you thought they were going to be. As you know, when you prepare your budget, you're still projecting what state aid is going to be, what local receipts are going to be. There's a lot of variables. Or some combination of both. Now, Long Meadow has been fortunate in the last few years to have free cash, and the school department has turned back some funds in the budget. But even though that has occurred several times, that still is not recurring source of funds. There have been years where there hasn't been free cash. The reason why you budget conservatively is that you certainly don't want to finish the year with a deficit and have to be slashing things at the end of the fiscal year because you're coming up short. And that's, Long Meadow has a AA2 bond rating, which is very high for a community of this profile with very little commercial development. And the reason why it has a high bond rating is because we do have healthy reserves and we do budget conservatively. So we are always able to, even though we don't have a lot of new growth, meet the demands of a very well-served community. So the tuition, let me forget the tuition, sorry. The costs associated with expanding a program, whether it's full-day kindergarten or additional police officers or whatever you're going to do. If you're going to expand service, they are recurring operational expenses. Benefits, wages, utilities, whatever the cost associated with the program is, materials, they are recurring operational costs. As a general rule, it is very bad for communities to use non-recurring sources of revenue to fund recurring operational costs. And the discussion, again, of whether it's this year's free full-day kindergarten discussion, and I'm not going to pretend like I haven't heard about it, or call it something else for the sake of this argument. We've kind of gotten in the mindset of it's only a X number of dollar problem. It's not an X number of dollar problem for 1 year. It's that amount every year going forward. And I think all of us would like to find ways, if we're going to expand services, to be able to eventually absorb it into the budget over time. But because of the limitations of Proposition 2.5, which means you can't spend any more than 2.5% of what you spent in the previous year, except for new growth, which we have very little of, then there's really no other way to generate the revenue. And looking to free cash, for example, or operational stabilization fund, you could make the town meeting could make the policy decision to do that. However, as public officials, and for me and for the select board and the school committee, as stewards of the public trust and public resources, it is our obligation to inform the legislative branch of the possible consequences of their choices. And a transfer of funds, every dollar in the budget that is in the warrant is spoken for. We don't budget for free cash. We don't have a line item that says we're going to put in $1 million of free cash that we want to get back at the end of the fiscal year. That's not how we do it. Every dollar is spoken for by some program or some line item based on our best estimates and projections. If we get lucky and circumstances break in our favor and we end up in the end of the fiscal year free cash, which it looks like we're going to end up at the end of fiscal year 2014 with free cash, then that is good. And in the past, what I've noticed is that the town applies that non-recurring source of funds, that one-time free cash, to non-recurring things like capital or an equipment purchase or something like that. Now, we spend money on capital every year, but that is not a recurring expense because you do different projects, and typically the project you do, you get 10, 15, 20, 25-year lifespan out of. So that is, under the best practices of municipal finance, a good use of free cash, a non-recurring expense met with a non-recurring source of revenue. So to the extent of, and I heard your comment during your school committee comment, it's not a lie or dishonest to plan ahead as on the general government side of the budget to say, if an amendment passes that transfers hundreds of thousands of dollars from the general government side to the school committee side, and the only place it's going to come from is the general government side to the school committee side, because the town meeting does not enjoy line item authority, to my knowledge, then that means we are going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars less to run our operations. And that will have meaningful consequences, because for us to look at only free cash when we have known non-recurring needs that money could be applied to already, and it hasn't even been certified yet, we cannot just say, take it out of free cash. I believe I'd be violating my fiduciary obligations to town in recommending free cash for that expenditure. It is an operational expense. And so the select board is not engaging in scare tactics to say, well, you ought to plan ahead in case this passes to know what we're not going to be in the business of doing next year. Because, but for an override, there's really no other place for the funds to come from. And like I said, it's not about, to me, it's not about the merits of the program. We did work well together. The town administration and the school district, I think, worked well together on preparing an overall town budget that was balanced. and really accomplished a lot of goals that both the general government side and the school department side wanted to accomplish. And to some extent that is, and I think if I'm going to go out on a limb here a little bit, since I have the opportunity, this is a serious issue for the whole community. If an amendment like this, and I guess as you consider what you're going to do and how you're going to respond to something the possibility there's a town meeting, I really enjoy the fact that you guys start each meeting with your mission statement. I think that is a really great thing that you do to remind yourself every meeting of what you're here for. The last part of that mission statement is about the broader community. And I guess I understand that the mission of the school committee is to serve primarily the schools and school children, but in your own mission statement you talk about what is also in the best interest of the broader community. And it is not a scare tactic to suggest that something like this would have negative ramifications for the broader community. It's just a fact of life under municipal finance best practices and Proposition 2.5. Thank you.
Could I ask you a factual question? How much money have we got in free cash right now? And how much money is in the operational stabilization fund right now?
Free cash right now, what you're talking about is 2014 free cash, which means what was certified last fall.
Yeah.
And I think we pretty much expended it all. There's not very much left at all. I think we started off with 900,000 or something like that. I don't know if you remember the number, but
I think we have about 360-something thousand, but there are warrant articles like snow removal. That'll be expending it down to zero.
The last year, as you recall, we came out of town meeting with an unbalanced budget. A substantial chunk of that free cash went to plug that hole right off the bat.
Okay.
And you can't keep doing that because, and I'm high bond rating equals lower debt service costs because of lower interest rates. Okay, so the building we're sitting in right now is a good example of, we're paying a lot of interest on it, but I'm sure we would have paid a lot more if we had a lower bond rating. If you're looking to build a new middle school in the next decade, a lower bond rating is going to make that project more expensive. So you know where I'm going. The more you tap into reserves for recurring expenses, the more the rating agencies frown on your credibility.
But this operational stabilization fund, how much is in there?
$2 million.
It's 2.1-ish.
And that's been growing over a number of years, has it not?
It's been replenished. I was not here, but from what I understand, a significant portion of it was used during the October 2011 snowstorm.
Well, I'm thinking if you tracked it, if you said, okay, it's $2 million this year, it was a smaller amount in 2013, a smaller amount in 2012. I think 2011, when we had that October storm, took a lot of money out of it, but it didn't take it all. My point is, see, we have a surplus, and we're able to put it into operational stabilization fund. If we vote for this kindergarten program, free all-day kindergarten, we can take care of that out of operational stabilization fund, and the school committee can budget for the funding for it. As you point out correctly, because it's an ongoing cost, we can accede to the will of the meeting, the town meeting. The people say they want it, okay, we'll deliver it.
But the select board and the school committee and the finance committee have all either adopted or endorsed financial policies for the town that are in the town's long-term economic best interests. Under our current policy, you should have 5 to 10% in reserves. And I think we're right now, and I'm not great with exact numbers, but we are on the lower end of that right now. And so the town has a goal of building up those reserves to get it closer to 7 or 8%, not even to the 10%. And it is for emergencies. It also, like I said, healthy reserves drive down your borrowing costs. And that is an annually recurring benefit, because we do bond for things for like sewer projects, and I should say the enterprise funds do their own deal. But if we bond for a general fund capital project or a new school or what have you, the interest rates are lower. And so John, I appreciate what you're saying, and it is a very attractive option to avoid paying to do this. but it goes against municipal financial best practices to do it that way. And people just need to be aware that there is a consequence to doing it. It's just, you can't just blithely say, throw free cash at it or tap in your operational stabilization fund. It really, like I said, forget whatever the program is. To do that, to balance your budget for operations is really bad practice. And it's not something that I don't think anyone who would be in my position would ever recommend. I'm saying right, town meeting gets to decide, but we should at least be able to tell them what the consequence is, and there is a consequence for doing that.
Liz, you had a question?
Yeah, at the town meeting, two questions. Does the select board get to decide if, let's say that there's an amendment and that the money's there, do they get to decide whether it comes out of the operations account or out of free cash? Do you know what I mean? Like, do they get to, does it have to come out?
I think the amendment has to specify where the money comes from.
I don't know if the amendment specifies where the money
If it's coming out of operational stabilization?
No, out of the regular operation.
Oh, out of the
account.
operation budget.
Yeah, out of
yeah.
general government.
General
I mean,
government, okay.
Sorry.
And I'll be honest with you, I only experienced last year and it was not specified. It just was
Right.
taken
I just
on the
wonder if
general
they get to
funds,
decide
the general
whether-
government side of the operation.
I was just wondering if they get to decide where the money comes from. In
They will,
terms,
I mean,
out of the general
I
side.
think ultimately the select board will make decisions on how to balance the budget.
Right, okay. And my second question is, I appreciate your candor about the consequences. And will you be sharing that with the town in some sort of meeting or media way? Because it's all well and good to tell us, but
No,
not a lot of people watch this.
I appreciate that, and we are working on that.
Just my parents.
Like I said, we are in the process of going through the budget right now, and preparing ourselves for town meeting and getting information out there as best I can. Like, I don't want to, appear that we are engaging in scare tactics, but there's a legitimate, I've been given a directive, the select board knows the town's finances as well or better than anybody, because they vote to make a lot of those policy decisions, or all of those policy decisions. And so they understand what the consequences very well could be. And that's why they've asked me to make a list of recommendations, because I'm responsible for managing the operations. So that's what we're in the process of doing. And the other thing is, we're also doing some research on what are the ramifications that may not be so obvious, other than a program cut or a laying someone off or something like that. But like I said, I hope I don't offend, but I recall last year that there was a program on the school side that was going to be cut if the budget vote didn't go a certain way. I mean, if that was a legitimate concern for folks, then it wasn't a scare tactic. So I don't see how you could be looking at what we are doing, the exercise we're engaged in the face of a likely amendment being offered, and call that a scare tactic. I think just to be fair.
Janet, then Kim.
Again, thank you for explaining that as well as you did, and I agree with Liz that I hope that information does get out to the public prior to town meeting, in whatever way, shape, or form, because, as she said, not a whole lot of people watch us. But, and I certainly understand that and respect that, and of you saying that there are the consequences, which I full well understand. Are those consequences going to be identified to people at town meeting? I'm not asking you for them now. I know you and the select board are in the process of finalizing budget and preparing for town meeting. But in terms of people making an informed decision when they're voting, will residents know what the consequences are that they're voting for or against?
I do believe that the select board will inform town meeting what the consequences are. Whether they do it in advance or not, I don't know.
Okay. That's fair enough.
We are trying to figure out the least painful way to do this if it was approved.
Okay, and I thank you for your honesty with that.
If I could, one of the options, of course, is for an override vote. Is an override going to be put up there as an option for people? Instead of closing the library or canceling their hours and scaring the daylights out of senior citizens?
A member of the legislative body could certainly put that forward.
Okay. And is it true that citizens can petition to place an override on the ballot?
I believe so. I think it is 100 signatures or 200 signatures, something like that.
And that could happen.
It's not like 10 signatures.
That could happen
for
for the June election?
I believe so, but I'm not that proficient. And I've only been through 2 town meetings.
Okay, is there a window like 30 days or something like that? Or
I believe there is a narrow window, and I think it's less than 30 days. I think it may be 10 days after town meeting. If people are thinking in that line, they should do their homework now so they're prepared, because they do know it is a lot of signatures in a short period of time.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So, listening to this, Michael, I guess my question is more for us. When we approved our budget in February, we turned back the $190,000 to the town. Did
No.
we?
Well, it didn't exist necessarily. We voted on a lower amount than what was
So we
anticipated
had
for us to vote on.
we had an anticipated amount. We came in 190 under that.
Yeah, under
Are
the
we
projection.
able to amend our budget to be able to take the full amount that we were going to be given this year? Because the reason that we did that was because we thought that there was a deficit.
Mhm.
We thought that we were trying to be fiscally responsible and help and not ask for more from the town. Can we, I don't know, amend the budget to accept the full amount instead of the 190 reduction, so that we can put that towards the kindergarten, and then next year, go in increments to see what we can do to hopefully have it free at one point?
So technically, I mean, we can amend our budget allocation to be whatever we want it to be. I mean, if we wanted to increase our budget by $1 million or by $2 million right now, we could technically do it. But that is not the number that's going to be in the warrant already for the school line. And we still need that allocation given, provided to us at town meeting. So if we were to amend our budget by $190,000, which is what we came in below the projected increase for the school department, we would still need to, at least for our purposes, we would need that allocation provided to us at town meeting in order to not have to make the cuts associated with, whatever we plan for that increase. If we don't get that allocation, we'd have to make a reduction. But, yeah, so I don't know if that answers the question.
Just to reiterate, Kim, every dollar is spoken for from the general fund. So from the local property tax levy, so when you talk about the 190,000 you refer to, and again, I don't want to step on Tom's toes, but that was a projection of base level service of budget. To be able to deliver the budget that you presented to the select board that accomplished an expansion of services, not only full-day kindergarten, but also expansion of reading programs in the 3rd and 4th grade, your budget made offsets to accommodate those increased costs. And that's why the budget was able to be, and honestly, that's why the budget deliberation of the select board really didn't do very much of the school budget, because it came in very close to the numerical target of the directive, even though the directive was base level and any expansion of services was going to be a supplement.
But that's...
Right, so that 190 didn't really exist to begin with, because if you took that in, it would be 190 more than, that would be a deficit based on the projected revenues. And if you did that today, it would create a $190,000 deficit in the budget.
Katie? You had a question?
I think what we keep talking about consequences and what's being thrown around, and I don't know, I guess I don't really understand how we can sort of avoid the consequence of what we're doing in the classroom by not expanding these services that you see as like above and beyond our scope?
I don't think I said that.
Well, it wasn't adhering to the directive.
Just from a financial standpoint. I didn't, during our budget discussion, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure we're clear on what I was saying and what I wasn't saying. During the budget discussions, I never said you shouldn't expand the services. It just was, how much can we afford to do in a given fiscal year with the fixed pie, if you will, the fixed number of dollars we have to work with. And you all did a very good job coming up with a budget that enabled you to do additional things but nevertheless keeping within that fixed number of dollars at our disposal. So that's all I was talking about, was the spirit of the directive is, can we afford to do this under our Prop 2.5 restrictions? Which you were able to do, and again, you should be congratulated for that.
Okay. I guess I'm still not understanding.
Okay.
So I want to just put it in round.
Sure.
So if we are given, if we have, say, $34 million last year, and these are numbers I'm making up. Okay, so if we were given a directive, no new initiatives, but the amount that we were going to be given would cover our contractual increases. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
So pretend that amount is $34,500,000, just for a round figure.
Okay.
If we develop a budget that stays within that amount to the penny, we're not allowed to have it all, because in February we made we approved a budget that was slightly under. So like in February.
What would have happened?
Essentially.
Is that, I mean.
What would have happened, I'm sorry, Mike.
I was just going to say that basically, yes, and that's because when we voted our budget, the select board had not yet voted on a budget. And so we voted the number that we voted, that,
Whatever,
that
yeah.
$34,500,000 number that you just threw out there. And then they built their budget, and then
Based on what we agreed to in February?
based on, well, using our budget as to fill the school line, and then all of their increases matching the directive, their contractual increases matching the directive. And they brought forward or I should say Stephen brought forward a balanced budget.
So we can't take back the money?
No.
Because now the budget, the
It's all
town's
spoken for.
budget has been
Yeah.
adjusted
Yeah.
based on our budget. Okay, I just need, I'm trying to.
I agree, and honestly, and you're right, because it's not, if you're not conversant in municipal finance, which most people aren't, and if I
Lucky
wasn't
me.
in this line of work, I probably wouldn't want to be either. It really is somewhat complicated, and the whole Prop 2.5 thing adds a whole level of complexity, like, well, why can't we do this? And money on the general government side is siloed significantly, where the money on the school side is a little more flexible, and you can move things kind of in between departments and accounts a little bit easier than we can. But the fact of the matter is, playing out your scenario, the money's all spoken for. You're talking about the expenditure side. On the revenue side, it was already accounted for, and had the school department chosen to do that with the additional 200 grand in there, then when the select board received the budget, they would have made an adjustment accordingly, like they did last year.
Right.
The fact that there was really minor adjustments to the school department budget by the select board speaks to the quality of the budget and the level of decision-making process that this committee engaged in to deliver it. And again, that is a compliment. The only adjustments were, which we discussed administratively, an agreement about the electricity for this building, because it is a moving target. We are looking at free cash, because that is even though electricity is a recurring expense, the total number for this building for the year is not known. But it's only going to be a one-time hit, because it was during construction, the systems that manage the building's electricity we're not fully programmed to reflect the use of the building, so it's gonna be a higher than normal number, and we'll know for next year's budget what the annual number should be.
That's true.
So that's the one adjustment we made. And then the other one, of course, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is the 20,000 for natural gas for Williams Middle School. Out of $34 million.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Just needed.
So.
There is a proposal on.
So there's a motion on the table.
And it's been seconded.
And it's been seconded, so, you know, so what are we doing? I guess it's.
So if, the proposal is that if it is requested, if an amendment is put on the floor at town meeting, and the school committee is asked directly, will you accept this money? Are we in favor of accepting the money, or are we not in favor of accepting the money?
I think we have to.
So the motion.
That's what the vote is.
Well, the vote will be on accepting the money.
But realistically, I mean, just from a semantic point of view, if town meeting votes to allocate us the money, we don't necessarily accept it. It gets given to us.
We have to accept it.
No.
To use it.
If we are specifically asked.
Right.
Will you take the money?
Do you support?
Do you support taking this money? That's different than than the select board just having the budget fairy come in and drop us 400,000. Last town meeting, there was no budget fairy that came and dropped money.
No budget fairy.
No budget fairies. So that's the question, is do we support accepting that money or not?
So, but the question is framed.
Yeah, it's a little too narrow.
We'd be voting in favor of accepting the money.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I still ask a question
Yeah.
on this? I hear what you're saying in terms of and John, in terms of the town speaking and that we are, kind of obligated to listen to what the town's saying. My concern is similar to what we heard the kids saying earlier in the meeting in terms of timing. Do you think that whoever's showing up for town meeting is the best representatives from our town? I know as a parent with young kids, a 7 o'clock meeting that's expected to go till midnight is not that easy for me to get to, especially for my husband and my parents who might want to vote too. I don't want to bring my kids there till midnight. No, so is there a way for us to ask the town to vote on this through a ballot? Rather than, if we are faced with that decision, I would like to hear from the town in a better venue, in a better way. Because I do think it's my responsibility to listen to the people and to the will of the town, but I don't think that town meeting is the best representation of the town.
Well, by charter, the town meeting is the legislative branch of our government.
Right, but I don't think that we'll hear from the town meeting, from enough people. I just don't think it's accessible.
That's up to the people out there to make up their mind whether they want to give up their personal time to take care of some public obligations.
No, I totally
That
understand.
is the question all of us face.
I know.
I mean, we're sitting here tonight, we're not getting paid for being
I
here
know.
discussing this.
But it's just.
But that is,
I just would like
that's
to
the way it's set up. Town
Yeah.
meeting is where rules are made.
I know, it just.
And if I could just remind people too, down the road, if there's something that comes up at town meeting, we don't necessarily have to follow what town meeting says, because we're elected to represent the children's best interests in the school system. That's the way Horace Mann set this whole deal up, okay? And he did it because he saw what select boards in the past were doing with school budgets. They were putting it down next to the outhouse budget, okay? By having a board go on record supporting something, by stating it's our professional judgment, or our judgment anyway, that free all-day kindergarten is in the best interest of children. We're giving the green light to people who want to vote that way. I assure you, there's going to be plenty of people at that meeting who will reject our opinion, who have already decided this isn't free all-day kindergarten, they're calling it babysitting. There's a world of a difference between babysitting and a professionally coordinated instructional period of kindergarten. But people aren't going to listen to that. So respectfully, I object to postponing it. I think we have to take a stand. And that is the question before us right now.
It's sort of the beauty of town meeting and the drawback is that
I
it's open
understand.
to, you know, it's.
It's just, it's a hard time for people in my shoes to get to, and I'm not saying I'm going, and, you know, for the high school town meeting, my parents went, we had kids in pajamas, but it's not everyone that will do that, and I do want to hear from as many people as possible, and I feel like by ballot, that's the best way, because you've got all those hours, and people can find a way to voice their opinion, that's all.
As a point of information, could I ask the town manager, can they put a referendum question on our town election ballot to rescind a vote of town meeting?
I do believe that's an option. You can also, I believe you can also amend an amendment to make it subject to an override on a spending decision. Like, for example, when the article about the Quint was being discussed, it was noted that that article, someone could get up, and even though it's a citizen petition, offer an amendment to the article and say, subject to an F override. So, you know that, again, that article's not on the warrants, but it was illustrative for me to know what were the options of how that could be handled on the town meeting floor. And like I said, I just already, you know, I don't know if the moderator is, I mean, it's his meeting, and I don't know if the moderator has weighed in on what he expects or what he'll allow, but I think these are all good questions for him.
Okay.
The last time it occurred at town meeting, a resident got up and made a proposal that an additional $800,000 be added, and it was at that point that they asked the school's position. So if a motion comes up, I think Janet's right that you should have a statement ready, and that statement we were asked for prior to the vote. So what was said, I think, did influence the vote. But I think you may be asked, regardless of whether or not you want to offer an opinion or wait for town meeting vote. The school committee was definitely asked for their opinion previously before the vote.
And what I would recommend is after we vote today, hopefully soon, what I would recommend is that whatever the result of the vote is, that the communication committee that we do have on the school committee draft a statement that would be read in response to being asked at town meeting, and that the communication committee present that at our next school committee meeting for vote. So that we all do have a say in it, and that we are making sure that we're expressing everyone's, thoughts and concerns. So whichever way the vote this evening goes, I would then recommend that the communication committee draft that statement.
So you accept that as a friendly amendment, or?
Sure, if you would like.
I'll second
If we
it.
want to put it all into one vote, that's
Yes, well,
fine.
that we're going to go on record, and we also want to publicize our position. I think that's clear enough.
So we're ready to vote?
I just have I guess my concern is about next year's budget for us, for our budget. And if we're accepting money, and I'm not saying one way or the other that we should or shouldn't, but if we're accepting money that doesn't necessarily exist in the operating budget itself, doesn't that put us, potentially $400,000 behind where we are right now? That's an additional $400,000 for us to try to make up in next year's budget. Is that, that's what it is, right?
Well, yes, okay, but maybe we should cross that bridge when we get to it. Right now, the question before this body is, are we going to have a statement that we'll put forward indicating that we have no objection to this amended amount of money, that we see it as, that yes, we would accept it. This position, I guess, is posed by the select board. They would like us to vote their way, but that's... Michael, there's a lot of other things that could happen within 365 days that are going to impact our budget. You're talking 2016, we're talking about the 2015 budget.
Right.
And keeping in mind that we're going into contract negotiations, which is going to severely impact our budget.
So we'll start 400,000 under.
I guess I'm a little confused, John. The committee did, during budget deliberations, vote for the program and the tuition, right?
Well, the initial vote was 6-1.
Right.
I voted for free full-day kindergarten.
Right.
But the second vote for a tuition charge, I voted, and the board voted 7-0.
So the board is our...
Stephen, the committee as a whole support the idea of full-day kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
The committee as a whole, well, I shouldn't say that. The majority of the committee, being fiscally responsible and trying to come in with helping to provide a balanced budget, and knowing the other services that the town needed, and the directives that we were given with the $600,000 deficit, then it was a $400,000 deficit, then we're trying to bridge and help, be good stewards of the community's money while balancing what's in the best interest of the children. That's where that vote came from. And we had said then, and we've said since then, that should financial situations change, that we would, welcome the opportunity to offer free full-day kindergarten. I think all of us, and I'm speaking for all of us, I understand the implications of using free cash for recurring expenses. I think we all get that that's not best business practice. But I think the point is that we need to be ready, just like you and the select board are preparing for town meeting and budget and consequences. I think, and the whole point of my wanting to bring this up is so that we are prepared that instead of having this debate on town floor with an already lengthy list of warrants.
Which we did last year, by the way.
That we could speak to this now with a vote of consensus and then a statement which would also have a vote of consensus going forth to town meeting to help streamline things.
For what it's worth to my ear, you just made the statement.
Right.
I mean, to me, this is just, I guess, I take it as a constituent opinion more than anything. You just made the statement by explaining why you made the decision, why the committee made the vote it made.
But also the financial situation of the town has changed.
From an operational standpoint, it has not changed. Free cash is not a change in financial and a recurring operations.
But the operations budget is also over what the minimum amount it needs to be, and we're still waiting to hear on casino mitigation. So there's still a lot changing in town budget.
There is not a lot changing in town budget. We are up against our Prop 2.5 cap. Again, like we are every year.
But I think, I think what Janet said, though, is that we understand the financial realities and the situations. However, we also understand that it's sort of the duty of the office that we all hold to sort of adhere to the will of the town meeting.
Sure. So I guess what I would say is that if it's the will of town meeting, if town meeting votes to allocate us money, if this amount, then I think in a sense we have an obligation to accept that money. But I don't necessarily think that's an endorsement of the proposed amendment on the floor. I think that those things are mutually exclusive.
Correct, but we're going to be asked for our statement prior to the vote.
I agree with that, but...
And our statement can include that we understand best business practices.
Right, I think that the debate here tonight has kind of clouded those, or mixed those two things together, which are not necessarily the same thing, because by saying that, yes, if town meeting says we support this, we'll go forward and utilize that money, is not the same thing as saying we support that amendment. And so we need to be very clear about that.
My vote wasn't saying that we supported the amendment.
I know, but a lot of John's comments tonight have indicated that that would be the spirit of this motion.
Well, that is the spirit of this motion.
Not for me necessarily.
Well, you don't want to understand it, that's your problem. The spirit of the motion is to say, yes, this is a good idea. Free all-day kindergarten
That's
is a good idea.
not what I heard Janet say.
And it's not our proposal, but if the money's voted by town meeting, we'll accept it.
Right. That's the motion.
That's it.
Right. I agree
You
with
don't have to throw in anything about your budget expertise or anything like that. That's
not
our-
throwing
no,
any budget
we're
issues, John.
The motion that's before this board right now is the one that said, we will accept the money, and we want to publicize the fact that we will, if it passes at town meeting. That's it.
Sure.
Okay.
And
I
then-
call a question.
Fine. There's been John's called the question, so all those in favor of a statement saying that should town meeting allocate money to the school department, if the amendment passes, signify so by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 2, 3, 4, 6. Those
Opposed? Abstain?
It was 7.
It was 7, so it's unanimous.
There were 7? Okay.
And so then that means that the communication committee will meet and draft a statement that will then be presented for vote at next school committee meeting, which is May the 12th?
May 12th, the
May
night
12th.
before town meeting.
Now, again, might it not be better to get it out earlier?
We would have to have a meeting.
We have to approve it.
Well, when is your next communications meeting?
Oh, well, that's,
We don't
what's
have
the,
them.
is it a
It's the
24
school committee,
hour?
John, school committee's in 2 weeks. For you to vote on it.
48 hours?
But I don't know why we need to post it ahead of time if we're already saying that we're in agreement of,
Well, that's my take on it. We just voted to make this motion and to publicize our position. So that's just a press release. Right?
Well, I mean, you've got the Republicans here, we're on TV. I mean,
Okay.
what more do you need?
Well, send it off to Long Meadow News and reminder.
The communications can do a press release,
Yeah.
They should have come.
and then bring it back to the next meeting, so the same message goes to town meeting.
that would be fine.
Okay.
We'll
We can't do
set it.
Wednesday.
Okay, I think that was the last item under financial report.
I think you got the audit, too.
That's the end of finance subcommittee?
Yeah, John brought it up and said that we reviewed the management
I must have missed
statement,
that.
so brought it forward just to inform the committee and provide them with the document.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so moving right along, SBC update, I think we already kind of had that, there hasn't been a meeting. Legislative,
Nothing to report.
Green Team,
Nothing to report.
Op Sub,
Nothing to report.
Seal, Collaborative,
The Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative is in the process, final stages of the process of selecting a new executive director. Without giving any names out, one person who was the pick of the committee, well, negotiations broke down. So we're now in the process of going to our second candidate, and negotiations on that are starting tomorrow, and I should have a full report. The process should come to an end on Wednesday. So our next meeting, I'll be able to tell you the name.
okay, Middle School Working Group. Okay, Policy, do you want to just do the policies for approval?
That's Liz.
Yep.
You ready, Liz?
Hold on.
Field trips.
I'm sorry. Okay, we had, is it one policy?
It's the same motion.
Okay. I move on the recommendation of policy subcommittee that the school committee approve policy IJOA, field trips, and the accompanying regulation IJOA-R, field trips.
Second.
A motion and a second, just for the public's information, these motions, or these policies were posted on the website for 30 days pursuant to school committee policy, and they have been 0 comments on them, and so I'll call for a vote, pending any further discussion. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving right along, Stephen, the real reason you're here tonight. So, just to frame this for the committee, and I know there's been a lot of emails that have flown back and forth in the last couple weeks. The number 2 priority for the school committee, for the capital planning committee this year, the number 2 priority we submitted was the replacement of the boilers at Williams Middle School. In that time, there's been a question about the validity of the quote received by the DPW. And as such, it seems that the concerns raised by the superintendent were in fact legitimate, and that the total cost listed in the warrant is not for, in fact, the replacement of those boilers, but for the replacement of certain parts of those boilers, like the linings, among other small items. Basically a little cleanup of those boilers. And so I invited Stephen here tonight to talk about basically what happened, and then after we talk about what happened and ask him some questions about that, I want to take a brief minute to indulge in the conversation about possible solutions for these boilers and for our actions at town meeting regarding the allocation of funding for these boilers. That I know the select board is looking to us to have that conversation, and of course, it'll be part of our conversation at town meeting. So, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to clarify a little bit in terms of the work for the boilers, and this is a tortured bureaucratic tale that I'm going to apologize in advance for. And truthfully, there are certain processes that have been in place in the town since long before I arrived that to some extent I've taken for granted, because the decisions get made and the projects get funded and the projects get constructed. So I have some level of reliance based on observing the town's experience. So, but there are, like a lot of processes, sometimes things can break down. And in the case of the Williams Middle School boilers, it really boils down to I think to some extent a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding in terms of the information that was being requested by the town, by the facilities director, of the person who was providing us with the estimate, and what that person providing the estimate thought they were saying. And it's deeply unfortunate that we're discovering this after the warrant has been published. The project has been vetted by the capital planning committee as well as the select board. But that is the reality we face. When we do the capital plan projects, there's an intake form that's standard for all the projects. It gives you who's applying, what are they applying for, how much was money applied for previously, some basic information like form you'd fill out going to the doctor's office. This one included a quote from an HVAC contractor who does work with the town for a new boiler that included, for one new boiler, including burners and other things, for $43,800. So by extension, we thought 2 of those would be, $90,000, and then so we budget for 100 just to account for possible cost overruns. It turns out that estimate, he thought he was estimating something different than what the facilities director thought was being estimated. After all this had kind of gone through, our on-call engineering and architecture firm, Reinhardt, took a look at the project and said, well, if you're going to replace the boilers and the controls and everything, it's $560,000. And during the course of the discussion about the boilers, the very legitimate question of, is it worth replacing the boilers if the building itself is going to be replaced? And when the project was $100,000, we thought it is worth doing that at that level. When the full project for condensing boilers that achieved the energy savings came up, I think over $500,000, begs that question again, and it may not be worth it for what could be less than a decade worth of use, with no guarantee that they could be repurposed. I mean, boilers should have a 30-year life. So we discovered this issue. The boilers themselves are a Burnham brand boiler, not to get too technical, but they have sections. This is and this really is important to understanding why we are here tonight. There's a front section called the burner, and that's what, burns the gas that heats the internal parts of it, that heats the water, that creates the heat for the building. And there are everything behind the burners is essentially solid state in certain sections. Burnham boilers have been notorious, especially that pair in Williams Middle School, for having leaks in between the sections. In fact, one boiler, I think boiler number 2, had been leaking, and they put essentially a crack seal type product that resealed in between the sections. It is a Band-Aid fix. So the proposal that was submitted for the capital planning was to just replace the solid state sections of the Burnham boiler with a different brand and use the same burner equipment, which is not even 20 years old, and has much life left on it, to eliminate the risk of leaking and then failure, and then add some other controls because of cold water shock to the boiler, and like I said, it gets pretty technical, and I'm not an HVAC guy. So there is doubt for sure that the $100,000 project, there's no doubt that it's not replacing the boilers and the controls. That's not what it's going to do. But can we get to a solution where the life of the boilers are extended to give our facilities department confidence that we won't have a school closure due to a lack of heat, or the Williams Middle School closure due to a lack of heat, and we think that we can come close. So on Friday, the facilities director, the director of public works, myself, our engineer, and the contractor who provided the original estimate went to Williams Middle School, looked at the boilers, talked through what the goals were, and the failure on our end is that conversation didn't happen in the way it should have before the capital planning process commenced. Now that it has happened, I am confident that the engineer and the HVAC contractor are on the same page, see the process the same way, agree about the existing conditions with not only the building itself and how energy efficient it is today, but also what's the appropriate solution to achieve that goal, to not have the potential for these notoriously bad boiler sections to leak and possible failure. So I would expect by the middle of this week I will have a detailed report from the facilities director outlining what the options are and how much they will cost. And I'm going to present that to the select board at its meeting next Monday. I apologize, I don't have that for you today, but again, I do think that it's deeply unfortunate that really a lack of preparation on our end led to the confusion on this, but I do think that we will be able to figure it out.
I appreciate the feedback and the fact that you're on top of this. I think a worry for me would be that I have been told that we're in danger of having catastrophic failure at Williams, that the 2 boilers could go. They're so old because of how the sections have been pieced together over the years. If the 2 boilers go, we'd be forced to do double sections. So I cannot stress the seriousness of having a middle school closed down because of heating situations. We know that Glenbrook is not much better in terms of the boilers. We had some work done there, but to have at least a boiler replaced there is, in my opinion, absolutely critical.
There's no doubt something needs to be done. I don't know, I mean, it's guessing on double catastrophic failure because there was some redundancy with the 2 boilers. When we were there with the HVAC guy who has worked on the boilers and the engineer, there's really no way to predict that, but they did both recommend moving forward with replacing, again, the backside. And then, of course, I asked about, well, why wouldn't we replace the burners? Could we get more efficiency? And kind of the bigger questions about saving energy cost. And the fact that the engineer said you're really not going to get a bang for your buck because of the system that actually carries the heat to the rooms and the insulation and the windows and everything else. You need there are other factors that need to be in place to really achieve the energy savings and the cost savings that we had hoped we would get. So in terms of the need to replace the equipment, the controlling equipment, I thought that that would be a higher priority, but both the engineer and the HVAC contractor were on the same page. You're not really going to get very much out of that, especially if you're not committed to the building long term. So everyone agrees on that one point, Marie, that something definitely needs to be done. And I think what we end up with in terms of once we get this report, my prediction is we're going to end up with something close to what we originally said we were going to have. I shouldn't say that. Close to what the facilities director and the HVAC contractor, I think, separately thought. But we're not going to have new boilers that are going to be energy efficient. That much is clear.
Katie.
So I have to tell you, this is remarkably frustrating because this seems to be a recurring theme. When I first joined the committee, we had an issue with the same sort of gap in budgeting for center school windows, and those windows were not able to be replaced because of inaccuracies in the bidding process. So this is just sort of the same story with a different appliance, for lack of a better word. You know, it seems to be continuing again and again. I
agree that it is frustrating.
And I wonder where our facilities director is. I thought he would be joining us to talk about this as well. Okay. So my other concern here, aside from like the frustration, is that I believe we had an amount removed from the budget based on the assumption that we'd be saving an energy cost with this new high efficiency. So will that amount be added back into our budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think if nothing else, we just had a whole discussion about a large hole in the general government budget. I can tell you that it will not be restored if that amendment passes, because there just won't be funds to do so. But we do have the commitment to work together on the electricity for the high school, and certainly it was 20,000 was the amount. And so in the context of needing to work on utility costs in this building, we could certainly work on it then.
We had mentioned that the select board is not able to change our budget, that it can only be done by an amendment on town floor. Was that number changed in the booklet? Did you take the 20,000 out?
I think what is printed was the school department's recommended budget, but then when Article 7 or whatever the number is comes up, the select board makes an amendment and makes a change.
Yeah, because when they get up, they're going to make the motion with the total bottom line number being $20,000 less than it would have been. So the motion that gets read is the motion that
Includes the 20?
it includes the reduction.
Well, it'll really be
Well, it should.
57,000, that's whatever it is.
Right, the booklet looks nice, came today, but I haven't had a chance to read it, but,
So-
they have to make a motion, they can't change our number.
They would make a motion for a total bottom line number, which is what they do.
They do. They have to report with the school.
They have to present the school committee budget as
Right.
you voted upon
Right.
it, and they have to make a motion to change it.
Right, their motion to change it would be, I believe it would be just be the general motion that they make at town meeting for a total bottom line number of the budget, which is what they've done historically.
I don't believe that's appropriate, and we sent legal documentation.
And he clarified that.
Mr. Martell is very aware of this, because this happened in Ludlow as well.
But the motion for, the vote, my understanding is the budget for consideration at town meeting is the select board's budget. That is their role under the charter, is to present the budget, the town budget.
They need to present the school committee budget as it was voted upon by the school committee.
They need to present it, meaning provide the document, but they do not need to recommend it as received from the school
Correct, they can make a
committee.
motion to change it,
Right, yeah.
So, what I heard you say was that our facilities director was sure, or could assure us that these repairs would work. But then you said the engineer and the HVAC person said, no, it needs to be replaced. So, where are we? Because the assurance of, and I'm sorry, and I don't mean to disparage anyone, but if our facilities director had trouble communicating a quote, and now he's sure that the repair will fix the problem for us at Williams, and yet the engineers and HVAC are saying no, parts of those units need to be replaced, how does all of this fit together?
If the people that are involved in this, the engineer,
Mhm.
the HVAC contractor, who
Mhm.
provided a written quote with the capital plan, so it wasn't just a verbal, I think this will work. I read the quote, I saw it. I didn't doubt it because it had the information on it. And the facilities director all have the knowledge of the building and the boilers, and the experience to come up with a good solution. The bottom line is they did not apply that knowledge and experience in a sequence or in a timing that made it that fit with our capital planning. And
But
that's,
even
and that,
right
and
now-
listen, that's on our engine. And I think, like I said, there, and I almost should go to the grease board to illustrate this point, because it's like you have a motor of your car, and
Right,
then
no,
the
I'm
body,
understanding
and the
the
body's
two-
rotted, okay? It's like getting a new body for your car and taking your existing engine and putting it in there. The boiler sections, the giant boxes,
Right.
and they're all, I think, piping and cast iron and all that other stuff, but I think they're solid state, there aren't a lot of moving parts inside. On the front of it is the burner controls.
Right, and we're saying that the burner controls are fine.
Right.
It's the back part that needs,
The facilities director thought that the quote from the contractor included new burner controls, and it certainly seemed that way to me.
okay.
The contractor, and it was just a quote, it wasn't a bid, there wasn't, but this is, this is the
But
process.
this is someone who the town is consistently working with.
Mhm.
But I guess my question now is, that you commented that the facilities director is sure that these repairs will make them functional and fine and operational. And yet you then said that the engineer and the HVAC person are saying repairs aren't gonna cut it, those two back units need to be replaced.
No, they are all on the same page.
So everyone thinks that
They're all on the same
repairs-
page now. Okay? What
With-
happened was they were not on the, and it wasn't like there was a disagreement about what to be done. There was confusion amongst, really was, I think, confusion on the part of the contractor and the facilities director. They were saying two different things, but they thought they were saying the same thing.
Right.
About pretty technically specific stuff, not does something need to happen with the boilers, not,
Right. So
it
as
really
a-
was, what's the scope of work that I need to make this happen? And one thought the other was saying something different.
So my question is, after Friday's meeting, what do all three think need to be done?
New boiler sections by a different manufacturer, retain all the same piping, all the same controls, and the same burners.
But that's not going to give us the energy reduction that we've already removed from our budget.
That is correct. And honestly, new high-efficiency condensing boilers, I've learned now, may not either.
Which
But so what I'm not understanding is that if the select board knows, and I understand the pot of money and it's one pot and you,
But they didn't know this information when they made the decision.
I understand.
To reduce the utility line
I
item.
understand, but they were very adamant that if we were getting new boilers, there was gonna be a cost reduction, and I believe you spoke to that, saying that you had experienced those same cost reductions. Well, now, if they're presented with new information of, that's not happening, we're not getting that, how is that taking that energy efficiency money away from us fair in terms of we're gonna have the same heating bills?
Right, and we'll have to work it out. I mean, in terms of, the warrant is printed, posted in people's hands. So
And this is a warrant item.
it's the overall budget.
No, the boilers, wasn't
And
that?
the boilers are, and
The
let me
boilers
get-
are a warrant item.
Right, and what we're trying to evaluate right now is whether we should keep the article.
Right.
no, it's already on the warrant, but when the question gets called, what to do about it. Ask town meeting to defer, but we'll know, I think, by the end of this week, whether or not because it says 100,000 or such sums as may be necessary. We'll have a much better idea of what the actual number is by the end of this week, and if it's 300, well, then we have an issue, but if it's 125, then it is a much smaller issue.
So right now, you don't know the total cost of what the proposed...
The recommended scope is going to be, no, I do not.
Okay. And so, obviously you and I have talked throughout the week about, potential ways to move forward at town meeting. Depending on the scope, let's say it is $300,000. I mean, we still are in a position where we need our boilers operating, we need them operating well, and we can't afford to lose even one at this point. So what is the game plan there? I know we've talked about moving potentially, rather than paying for this directly out of capital, amending it to allocate it into the reserve fund and having the finance committee hold it while we, find additional funding. What are your recommendations?
Well, and I need to, this is a general fund item.
Right.
The replacement of the boilers is a capital item funded under the select board's budget out of the general fund. I reiterate that if the amendment that was just discussed transfers a substantial amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars from the general fund side of the budget to the school committee, and you've all voted to accept the money, this is one of those things that could be a consequence. This is so notwithstanding the potential of the amendment, I don't want to be alarmist. I think that the estimate we get back will be close to the 100. We kind of talked order of magnitude with the contractor and the engineer. It was not, we're way off. It was just our expectations of what we were going to get for the money were way off. And truthfully, once we talked it out, the scope of work, the fix, that the repairs, the replacement of certain components, makes a lot more sense for the building than even replacing all of the stuff for valid engineering reasons, not just monetary. That much I was convinced that, and I pressed both the contractor and the engineer to see if I could get them to disagree on that point, and they were both very much in agreement. So that gave me the confidence that what we're coming up with is probably the right solution. So in terms of options, the select board will discuss that Monday night once we have this more detailed information. So I wouldn't want to speculate other than to say there's this overarching factor that we've all just spent a significant amount of time discussing.
Stephen, the select board should be apprised of the fact that when one boiler goes down, the temperature can drop into the 50s. It hovers around the low 60s if it's an okay weather-wise day, but if you get into a cold spell, it's dropped into the 50s. So the significance of one boiler going down is really something people need to understand, that students can only sustain a certain amount of time in a cold building. And so with the repairs that they're looking at and the plan they're coming out with, does that address both boilers? Because the Williams boilers have shut down numerous times over the past couple of years.
They're going to give us a few options.
Okay.
Because we had this dialogue as well. Boiler 2 is the one that they did the sealant in, and that would be the one that they would replace, or the sections would be replaced. The question is boiler 1 stable enough to provide redundancy and the extra heat you need when it's 10 degrees for a couple of days in a row? And that's what they're evaluating.
Okay.
Liz?
I share Katie's concerns with the method of getting these quotes. As she said, the same thing with the windows. We couldn't get windows. They're actually very dangerous. One has fallen into the classroom and a few years ago, and they need to be replaced. But the method of getting a quote, after this incident, is there any way to change your policy or anything of how getting new quotes, or maybe somebody else needs to do that? Maybe
We're looking at options. I mean, like I said, I wasn't gonna rewrite the process when I hadn't observed how the existing process works
Right.
firsthand.
But going forward,
Moving forward, I clearly see now that I should have asked, and I do ask a lot of questions during the process. I don't just accept the things. I mean, I do put thought into it and ask the questions. I obviously did not ask the right ones, and even if I had, the answers maybe weren't reliable. And how do we improve reliability on the information being gathered by town departments who are assembling these requests, and then making sure that as they get vetted by myself, Capital Planning Committee, Select Board, that it withstands that scrutiny. And that's something that we are gonna have to fix, obviously, and I wish I had done a better job on that this year. The only thing I'll say in defense of town employees is that, especially a situation like this where you're relying, I mean, we have limits to what our knowledge is of what things cost. And so the facilities director is not an HVAC contractor. Knows a lot about HVAC work, but doesn't pay the labor, get the units from the supplier, any of that stuff. And you rely on the work of others to put the costs to these capital projects that get requested. And sometimes contractors don't put a lot of effort into it because we don't have a budget to pay people to produce these estimates. And sometimes when we go out to bid with the work, the contractor gets beat. And so they spent time taking measurements and calling suppliers and, taking their time with no guarantee that they would actually get the work. And that is not unique to Long Meadow. That's been a factor in every community I've worked in.
right.
And
That
so
happens
you
to
do the best you can
homeowners.
based on relationships. And that's why Reinhardt, is our on-call engineering and architecture firm, should be brought in earlier on things like this. But there's an additional cost of doing business to do that with town.
Right, but as a homeowner, I get a quote from HVAC for my boiler, and nobody led me on.
It's a little different when you're large-scale buildings. But I have heard the story about, obviously I wasn't here, but I've heard the story about the windows and.
And that's not the only issue.
Yeah.
The lockers, it's just the list goes on.
The elevator, the fire alarm system.
Janet.
With the assessment that's been done, would the repairs be done in time for this next winter? Because I heard Michael say something about putting money in reserve. Are we looking at doing the repairs for this next winter season?
The reserve would be to have the funds at hand, so if we needed an additional appropriation from free cash at the fall town meeting, you would have it available, or the finance committee could vote to release the funds versus having to go back to a special town meeting to release the appropriation. I don't know that it'll come to it. We'll come to that.
I'm really confused, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've been following along.
Yeah, the plan is to do the work
Before next winter.
Before the winter season. We do not want to lose the season. That's the goal.
Okay.
If I could follow up on that. So we're going to do some work and we repair them. And let's say January 5th, we have severe cold and both boilers go out. Can we dip into the operational stabilization fund to get the money for a quick replacement? Is it possible to quickly replace these boilers?
No.
They're not on the shelf somewhere where you can just
No.
take them down.
No,
right?
and the other thing is, like I said, there's two parts to it. And if we replace the sections, the kind of solid state part of it, then the controllers, by both the engineers and the contractor's observation, are fine. They don't need to be replaced. It's the welded sections, the cast iron component of it that needs to be replaced.
Okay. But what if we have a cold snap? What happens then?
John, it takes weeks. Some of the pieces have to be handmade.
So we're talking about a 3-week disruption?
Minimum, and if you need a new furnace, it could be 2 months,
Well-
because they have to make it and fit specifications. It would be a major problem if there's a malfunction.
Depends on it does depend on where the malfunction is and what the nature of it was.
Exactly. We've been lucky because
Controls, burners, those things are easily replaced.
So,
Do we have any contingency plan, like to bring in space heaters and stuff like that?
Eric would
No.
like that.
Well, like I said, we're working on accomplishing the primary goal, which is replacing the unreliable sections of the boiler with a new reliable boiler section.
Okay.
All right, so, I mean, obviously, right now, we're dealing in a lot of hypothetical about, what may happen. So, our next meeting is the 12th of May. So what I would suggest is that we wait until the end of the week when you get some more finite information. Obviously, we can attend the next select board meeting if you think it's necessary. And then we can finish this discussion at the next meeting when we have actual information.
I'm happy to transmit a report.
I was going to ask, since you're going to have answers by the end of this week, and I'm not asking for it before the select board meeting and the discussion, but after Monday night, could you, since there's another whole week, could we at least have the information to review and see what options there are? Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the approval.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the approval of warrants.
Okay. I move that the school committee approve the warrant batch number of 2200 of the general operating fund FY14 dated May 2nd, 2014 in the amount of $345,728.43.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? The motion. Okay, I've got all those opposed, all those abstaining.
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion carries 6-0-1. Is that it for warrants, or is there one more?
Nope, that was it.
Perfect. All right, that's all the business we have tonight. There is an executive session, so I will call for a vote to adjourn into executive session.
I move that the school committee adjourn into executive session for the purpose of strategy as it relates to litigation, not to reconvene into open session.
Second.
Motion requires a roll call vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on May 12th.
Fun, guys.
Thanks.